about the technical difficulties. Let's go ahead and we can start the meeting.
Okay, one moment, please.
We are now broadcasting.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, September 27th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. And due to the state of California's declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held virtually pursuant to authorization from Governor Newsom's executive orders. City Council and Commission meetings are not currently open to in-person attendance. So if you're still trying to figure out how to get on, you can see it on TV on channel 26. You can video stream it through the city's website. And if none of these are available to you, you can always try to contact David Hem, our planning manager, at dhanham, Hanham, at ci.pinole.ca.us. To participate, there are a couple of different ways. I'll give you the short version. On this one here, it's https://zoom.us/join. The webinar ID is 876-371-49010. Speakers can be asked to provide their names and city of residence. Although providing is not required for participation, each speaker will be afforded up to 3 minutes to speak. Speakers will be muted until their time comes to provide their public comment. So with that, let's go ahead and start the meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll go ahead and start that. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America,
and to the
Republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Dave, can we do roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Menes?
Here.
Commissioner Martinez?
Here.
Commissioner Benzuli?
Here.
Commissioner Current?
Here.
Commissioner Wong is absent. Vice Chair Moriarty?
Present.
Chair Benuelos?
Here.
Let the record show that Commissioner Wong has an excused absence, and we have a quorum for all of tonight's actions.
Okay, thank you. And we get to welcome, where are you, Raphael? There you are. Raphael, welcome to your first Planning Commission meeting. This is definitely something that is kind of a different thing. And we appreciate your interest in joining us, and we hope that you get out of it as much as we all get out of it as well. And look forward to your thoughts and your decision making. With that, let's go to citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens that want to be heard in front of us?
At this point, I don't have anybody on my end now.
Okay. If anyone pops up in the next few minutes, just let us know.
Right.
And we'll go on from there. So the first thing we're going to do is meet to vote on the meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of August 23rd. Does anyone have any comments to those meeting minutes? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to get someone to make a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes of the regular Pinole Planning Commission meeting from August 23rd, 2021.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Chair, excuse me. We actually need to do a roll call vote.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
You think when I hear 17 different pledge allegiances at the same time, all separated, I'd kind of figure that out.
All right.
Okay. Can we do a roll call vote?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Menes?
Based on my review of the prior meeting, viewing it via video and reviewing the minutes, aye.
Okay, Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Benzuli,
Aye.
Commissioner Current,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moriarty,
Aye.
Chair Benuelos.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thanks. So our next thing is opening the public hearings. And it looks like we have one for a conditional use permit, CUP 21-03, Cortez Body and Tow Shop. Request is consideration of a conditional use permit for the purpose of establishing a tow truck and body shop business in an existing building located at 730 San Pablo Avenue. Our applicant is Israel Torre Cortez at 730 San Pablo in Pinole. And that's the location. And David, can you take it away?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated, this is a project being applied by Cortez Tow and Body Shop. They currently have a business within the zoning area of 730 San Pablo. Basically, it's kind of give you some parameters. A lot of people are familiar with the building, but to the north, they've got the Westcat admin building and yard. To the west, they've got the vehicle service and industrial use on the western portion of the site. Walter Avenue with single family residential and storage beyond. To the south of the property, we have vehicle services at San Pablo Avenue with a single family residential and commercial beyond. And then on the east is a vacant property. To kind of give you an idea, the project consists of establishing a tow and auto body services as described by the applicant's proposed scope as attachment B in your package tonight at 730 San Pablo Avenue. The applicant currently operates Cortez Tires and Auto Repair, vehicle service use in one building on the site, which is building number 2. The project proposes to use an adjacent building, which we're calling building number 1, for the vehicle services as well. In addition, a new tow service is proposed to complement the body shop. Building 2 would contain car lifts, tire racks, office space, customer areas, changing rooms, restrooms, and other equipment. Building 1 is an empty warehouse space at this point that will accommodate 4 workspaces, vehicle storage up to 12 cars, office space, and a restroom. The body shop is proposed to operate between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The proposed towing hours are proposed to be in 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. The business proposes 3 employees for the body shop and 2 tow truck drivers, at least at the start of the business. This proposal indicates that up to 16 vehicles can be stored inside in buildings 2, 4 in workspaces, and 12 in the open area in the building. There are 5 parking spaces that are available on the outside of the building as well. 10 employee parking spaces are located behind the building 3 on the lot, which allows for the towing operation to proposes to pick up and drop off vehicles. The vehicles to be worked on will be stored in the body shop. The applicant expects an average of potentially 1 car towed per day at the beginning and hopes to see at least 3 cars per day as the business continues. And because of this, we added a condition of approval that vehicles towed to the site that are awaiting work, undergoing work, or completed work shall be stored in the building or in additional locations outside the building indicated on the project plans. Those cars would be for pickup. So if the cars that are outside, those are for people that are ready to pick them up, come get them, and so they're not necessarily stored on the site for very long periods of time on the outside. The proposal. Furthermore, the vehicles shall not be parked as to block the circulation access through the site, as conditioned as part of attachment A. The proposal is identified an available space on the side of the building behind building 1, which is seen as some photos that we included. That is approximately 55 feet by 8 feet and closed from view for the storage of parts and waste. So basically, the building 1 blocks all of that access. I mean, they're able to access it through a little hole, but no one can really see anything behind the building. And they have about a 6-7 foot wall between the building and the property line. So there's some space there to store some body parts, so to speak, for the cars. The applicant shall be responsible for continued maintenance for the site, including the coordination of pickup and clearance of items A condition of approval has been included for site maintenance as attachment A. And just to let you know, we have our code enforcement officer here within city staff, and she will be monitoring all the sites, this site as well as all the other sites around the area. To kind of give you some background on the project. The project located at 730 Avenue, which is approximately 115,000 square feet, U-shaped developed lot. The lot contains 5 industrial warehouses style buildings and is covered by paved surfaces, serving as parking and circulation on the majority of the property. The vehicle service uses operate in some of the tenant spaces, so there are some other car repairs, auto shop. There's also a small little body shop in one of the units there. The proposed use requested under this conditional use permit is located on the eastern portion of the 730 San Pablo Avenue property. Cortez Tire and Auto Body Repair currently occupies building 2. It's kind of hard because that area, it has buildings. When you drive into the facility, you can drive all the way around, but actually 720 are the inside buildings. So the inside buildings are actually 720 San Pablo. The outlying buildings, like we're building 1 and building 2 and around, are the interior, or I call it exterior, which is actually 730 San Pablo. So there's really 2 addresses, but they're all inclusive in terms of the units. It's all owned by one property owner and the car uses that are there. The proposed use requested is basically Cortez Tire and Auto Body. The building 2 is approximately 4,500 square feet building on the property. The project proposes to also operate in the existing space of building 1, which is approximately an additional 4,500 square foot building that was mostly recently used as a granite and marble warehouse. Attachment C contains images of the space and the immediate areas outside. Under the current requirements within the specific 3 corridor specific plan, vehicle service uses require a conditional use permit. Existing vehicle service may continue to operate. However, a conditional use permit would be required for new vehicle service areas if the new vehicle services business occupies a space that did not have a previous vehicle service use. And in this case, where this building 1 was more of a warehouse for marble and granite, so they're converting it into a vehicle services, and so that's why we required the conditional use permit. Vehicle services in the city are reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission as conditional use permits. Just kind of give you some of the analysis in terms of the land use and zoning. The land use is designated as a service sub area in the general plan and 3 corridor specific plan. The general plan, the SSA, is intended to maintain and enhance existing land uses while providing land use flexibility and incentives to encourage new private investment and additional development. This project, a limited amount of general office, retail, and residential uses may be permitted where they will not conflict with the principal industrial uses in the area. The proposed project continues vehicle service uses that have operated on the property and expands the business on the same site. The project meets general plan goals and policies, including the following: general plan land uses in terms of the goal, balance housing and employment opportunities to reduce trips in and out of the region and encourage commercial development, which maintains and enhances the quality of the city's commercial areas, provides service for residents, and broadens the tax base of the community to provide needed revenues for public service. It also has, in terms of our policies, provides sufficient land for commercial and industrial uses to allow for development that provides basic goods and services to Pinole residents. And policy LU2, provide for economic development, which is 1, maintain the city's ability to finance services and the construction and maintenance of public improvements. And 2, offers local employment opportunities for Pinole residents to reduce inner-city commuting. And 3, assures the availability and diversity of residents serving goods and services. So as part of the 3 corridor specific plan, of course, the description of the general plan is this is in the San Pablo Avenue corridor as a gateway into Pinole. It encourages light and green industry. The vision includes embraces of the area historic character as an industrial area while moving toward newer, cleaner industry while allowing land use flexibility. The site has a specific plan and zoning designation of office industrial mixed use district, or what we call OIMU, which is intended to allow a wide range of office and light industrial development and uses. Vehicle services are identified as an allowable use with an approval of a conditional use permit for the OIMU district in the San Pablo Avenue corridor. The property mostly all the businesses that are in those properties are all vehicle service type properties. So this new use is consistent with all of the existing operations. And in fact, this project actually proposes expanded operations of the Cortezes that add to their auto and tires. And just now they're adding towing and auto body, and includes an additional building. However, the building is not proposed to be modified, and the exterior areas of the site would not be modified either. The proposal would not provide expanded vehicle services, or would provide expanded services to our residents. As part of our zoning, as I stated, the property is zoned OIMU. Under the 3 corridor specific plan, this district is for light industrial development. The project does not propose modifications to any of the existing buildings. The project is exempt from the Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA section 15303 of the CEQA guidelines, because it proposes new vehicle service use within an existing business building that's less than 10,000 square feet and with no modifications to the exterior of the structure. This project is located in an urbanized area intended for light industrial uses and has other vehicle service uses, and does not contain significant amounts of hazardous substances, is served by public services and facilities, and is not in an environmentally sensitive area. The project proposes a vehicle service use on a developed property with similar uses. The proposal provides expanded use for local vehicle service, including auto body and towing. And with that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 21-10 or 2110 for the conditional use permit, 2103, conditionally approving a tow and body shop at 730 San Pablo. So with that ends my presentation. If you have any questions of staff, I'll be happy to answer them. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, David. Let's see. So does anyone have any questions? And I'll start with Frankie.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anne, do you have any questions?
Only this, Mr. Hannum. So I noticed on the application that they said that there would be no storing of vehicles, and which is great. But my question is do we have in the code, do we have a time limit for storage of vehicles on a commercial property?
We don't have a time limit, at least in this area, the OIMU. However, they cannot store vehicles. They have a limited amount of what I would call public parking. So if they do store any of the vehicles, they have to be inside. There's really no other area with all the other vehicles that are out in that area for this business, is that they're going to need to store most of those vehicles inside. And plus, the applicant has informed me that they have other areas where they can take their cars. So if their cars are stored, it won't be for very long, because then they will route them to their yard. They have a yard in another portion of the county. So
okay,
is what I was informed. So we're asking that they limit it to the indoor storage only, and on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Adam?
I take it the applicant and the property owner are two different entities, as far as you know.
Okay.
David Hannum, the property owner and the applicant are two different entities.
From my understanding is yes, they are two different entities. However, the property owner has signed off on this use on their property. So, but the Cortezes are leasing, I think, 2 out of the 4 buildings that this property owner has. And so there wasn't an issue between the property owner and the tenant.
Okay. All right. Then no, I don't have any other further questions. Thanks.
Okay. Raphael?
So just to be sure if I'm understanding this project correctly, it looks like most of what's going to be changing physically with this project is that a currently mostly vacant building is going to be redesigned to be able to store more vehicles and to allow for the overall site to serve as a tow business in addition to its existing use as a body shop. So it's an intensification of existing uses, but not as much a new use. Do I have that right, or is there something I'm missing here?
No, it's an intensification based on the fact that it was a marble warehouse before, and now they are converting that into auto use. So in essence, it is an intensification of the use. However, they're not expanding any of the buildings that this project is going into. So there is no. It's usually when they say intensify, it also means adding area, and they're not adding any area. Their business is confined within the existing buildings on the property. So there's no. That's it. But they are intensifying the use in the sense that they are bringing more vehicles onto the site.
No other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Mr. Current?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, thanks. And then I have a couple of questions. I think that was everybody, right? Yeah. You mentioned, David, that there's going to be some space for when they're finished working on your car, they park them, I guess, kind of in the front. Now, this is something that's done all up and down the street there with all the people with similar businesses. Mm-hmm. And depending on the where the buildings are and how big the place is, sometimes that's not a big deal, and sometimes it's a little problematic. And the cars, when they're finished, leak out onto the street and park along the edge of the Pinole Valley, not Pinole Valley, but San Pablo Avenue. Do you know how many parking spaces are planned for the front area there?
They have 5. They have based on the plan, I think it says they have 5 or 7.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
because a lot of places don't have that many. So.
Just so I make sure. They have 5.
5? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they have 5, but in front, but those are 2 of those are set for their tow trucks. So effectively, they have 3 in front.
That's right, 3.
And they say they have 10 parking spaces in back.
Right, behind building number 2, which is part of their tire and auto repair.
Correct.
Right.
Have they said anything about having like a contract with insurance companies like AAA or State Farm where those tow trucks might not really be parked there, but might be roaming around waiting for a call?
Yeah, I mean, they have talked about that. I think they're on the line. I don't know if they're on the line, so those are questions you might want to ask the applicant. Let's see if she's on the line. I think she is.
That was my next step for that. So.
Let me check to see if it's part of it.
Hello, Dave. How are you? This is Julia.
Oh, there she is.
Hi.
She is on today. Thank you. Thank you, Julia.
I'm not sure if you heard what I'd asked Julia. This is Tim Benuelos on the chair. There was I had a question about the parking that's kind of designated for people that come pick up their cars and whatnot after they've been worked on. And there was a comment made that the tow trucks will also be parked there. And then I had a question, do you have it now, or are you planning on getting like a contract with somebody like AAA or Farmers or State Farm, where your tow trucks would be not necessarily parked there, but actually out roaming, waiting to go tow cars and do services, out in the roads? Do you have anything like that?
We don't currently have anyone right now. Of course, I mean, as any business, I guess that's the big picture, right? To get something like that, either AAA insurances, whatever, But as of now, yes, on the parking spaces in front of building 1, there is 5, which 2 of them will take the tow trucks. But also right in front of the building, we are able to park other vehicles besides the right outside the doors. The big doors. So we are able to park there. And again, like you guys mentioned, we have other 10 spaces behind building 2 that we are able to use also.
Okay.
So there is a lot of parking spaces that come with building 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. And since you're taking over the where the granite business was, you got a little bit more frontage right inside your fence, I would think, where they might have taken up, they had dibs on the spaces, I guess, and so you're going to have a little bit more room than you had before. Is that correct?
Yes, before, right, than what we had with building 2, exactly.
And I've been there before. You guys have worked on our cars over the years, and you're pretty good at orchestrating the cars around. So, and you do have a decent enough runway in there where that's, it's done fairly well, and you have the space there, to do it compared to some of the other businesses where they don't have anywhere near the room you have. So.
Yes, definitely. We're lucky on that part.
yeah. And I was just kind of going over in my head, how it, because everybody does the same thing. They, they finish their car, they park them in front, and then people come and get them, usually after work or whenever. So I make sure.
Yes, definitely. So like right now, what we're doing in the tire shop, usually, as soon as we know that the car is going to be done, we call the customer, and usually they're there really fast. So, I mean, the body shop usually does take a little bit more to repair, let's say. But, we try to, manage that the customer comes, right when the car or when the vehicle is done, so as to not have so many cars stored there,
Yeah.
Not having parked there, just like that.
so it doesn't stack up. People come and go. And
yes, they come and go, definitely, yeah.
Okay. While we have our applicant, does anyone have any questions for the applicant, since we're kind of transitioning to that part?
This is Commissioner Moriarty. I just want to say well done for expanding your business. I hope that you guys are able to find, success in that. And
Thank you.
yeah, so I mean, obviously it seems to be well within the parameters for this space. And so that's all. I don't have any specific questions, but I do wish you well in
Thank you.
your next step on your business.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, see, now I just have one more. What are you doing for painting cars? Are you going to have a paint booth or some kind of?
Well, as of now, we're not planning on that. We do have another shop in El Sobrante that will be handling the paint job. Right now, we're only focusing on repairs, body repairs. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay, that sounds good. And the reason I asked that is in the building code world, whether it's a granite business there or a body shop, it still would be an M occupancy. When you have a situation where you have your painting, that's an H occupancy, and that kind of gets into a whole bunch of other things because of the
Yes, I imagine.
H stands for hazardous, and there are several levels of that. And I think when you have painting, that's the lowest level, but it still bumps you up in terms of things you have to do in terms of separation of your uses and all that kind of stuff. So that's usually the only thing that
definitely
that comes up. So
and there's also a condition that if they do want to have a spray booth, they've got to come back to the city to get that approved through the Development Services Department. So so based on whatever if one day they come back with a spray booth, and then depending on the size and what it's doing or the size of it and how big it is, will determine whether or not I come back to the Planning Commission or not with that project. So right now we just have it as approved with the Development Services Department. They come back, so they've got to, if they want to do a spray booth, they've got to come back to the city to make sure we cover that use if they decide to use it.
Yeah, because there are significant building code things that get latched onto that kind of a thing. So
definitely.
That's the end of my questions. So I guess at this point I'm going to bang my pretend gavel and open the public hearing. And David, do we have anyone who wants to speak to this?
At this point, no, we don't have any persons from the public.
Okay. Well, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any comments that anyone might want to have. And I'll start with, this time I'm going to start with David Curran.
I actually do not have any questions. I just want to comment about how this little area of car repair, my smog test person I use every 2 years, and it's really kind of a interesting part of Pinole, and I'm really glad to see that it's being maximized for its use. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Raphael?
I agree with David, Commissioner Current. I think that it's good to see the site being used to its fullest extent, and it will hopefully lead to more jobs and resulting inflows of resources coming into the city and act as an improvement for the city as a whole by providing additional services.
Okay, thank you. Frankie?
Yes, I'm echo the sentiments of everyone else. Welcome all the new opportunities, the new jobs, the new sales tax revenue that'll help us and make the much needed improvements in the city. So I welcome it. I think that's a great idea.
Great, thanks. Anne, did you talk?
Thank you.
Yeah, no further comments.
Okay. And Adam?
No further comments. I just want to echo Anne's sentiment that, best of luck in your new business venture. It's good to see everyone expanding. So, best of luck.
Yeah, and I don't have any comments. I've had
Thank
cars
you.
over the years at Cortez's place, and back. I remember him back when he used to work at Big O. And Cortez is a real go-getter, and he's one that he's always out there working really hard, and he's all about his business, and I'm glad to see him expanding, and because I remember that was a big deal for him to even open the place years ago. So you guys, I congratulate you on making this move. I know something like this always is a little scary because now you have more rent and more costs and more overhead and all that kind of stuff, but I hope that this is going to add to your success that you've had there so far. So
thank you, Tim.
Yeah. So with that, I'm ready to accept a motion on this.
Anyone?
Well, I let Raphael make the motion. That's his first thing on being new on the commission. Let's get him on the board.
Okay. Yep. Trial by fire time, Raphael.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion once I've got the proper text of what's being asked for. Okay, so I move that the commission adopt resolution 21-20 for conditional use permit 21-03, conditionally approving a tow and body shop at 730 San Pablo Avenue, as listed in item E1 of tonight's agenda.
Okay, you have a second?
I'll second
that motion.
You have a second and a third.
Okay.
All right. And so can we do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Menes?
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez?
Aye.
Commissioner Benzuli?
Aye.
Commissioner Current?
Aye.
Vice Chair Moriarty?
Yes.
And Chair Benuelos?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Great. So congratulations, Julia and Cortez, and good luck with your business.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So our second, this is also
Chair,
public
before
hearing.
you move
Yes?
on, can you just read the appeal language?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Let me find it. Sorry. Where is that? I'm not seeing where that is.
You want me to do it, Tim?
Sure.
Okay. I hope it's as legal, but it says any person may appeal an action of the Planning Commission or of the planning manager by filing an appeal with the city clerk in writing within 10 days of such action. Following the public hearing, the city council may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the planning commission, and the planning commission may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the planning manager. The cost of appeal of the decision is $500 and a minimum of $2,500 deposit fee. Note, if you challenge a decision of the commission regarding a project in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing or in the writing delivered by the city of Pinole at or prior to the public hearing.
Thanks. And Chair, for future reference, it's right above the call to order on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was too low into it. Thanks. Thank you, David. Okay, our number 2 thing tonight is Comprehensive Design Review DR 21-11, Vista Woods Senior Apartment Complex. Consideration of a comprehensive design review for the purpose of constructing 179 units for low-income senior households that consist of 16 studios, 128 one-bedroom apartments, and 35 two-bedroom units. The complex will provide management offices for the residents, 2 outdoor deck areas on the second and third floors, a community kitchen, a dining and game room, a TV room, and a fitness area. The complex will provide 88 parking spaces as well as bicycle parking. Our applicant is MRK Partners, 100 Standard Street in El Segundo. The location is 600 Roble Avenue, 1106 San Pablo Avenue, and 1230 San Pablo Avenue. Our APNs are 402-023-007, 402-023-002, and 402-023-003. So, David, you can take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Snell, if you could load that, the first, there we go. Okay, so there we go. The Vista Woods Apartments, that kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at from the San Paulo entrance or exits right there as part of the facility. So if you go to the next slide, please, Dave. Next slide, sorry. Okay, so just going to the next, the project specifics of the project. In your packet, you have a area plan of where it is on. It's located at the corner of the corner of Madrone and San Pablo Avenue, as it kind of does an S shape up towards the corner of Roble and Encina, and so it covers 2.10 acres or 87,000 square feet. The project has a MUSA or mixed use sub-area general plan land use designation. The project has a mixed-use sub-area as part of the San Pablo corridor, three corridor specific plan, and also the project has a very high density residential zoning ordinance designation. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, Dave. Okay, so it kind of gives you an idea of where the location is as part of the general plan land use designation. As you can see, the mixed-use sub-area also goes from 10.1 units to 50 dwelling units per acre. Let's go to the next slide, Dave. Again, part of the mixed-use sub-area as part of our 3 corridor specific plan land use designation. If you go to the next slide, and then our zoning ordinance designation. You can see kind of the S shape on the northern edge of San Pablo, the 2 big parcels and the 1 little square on the north side of San Pablo. So with that, to kind of give you a little bit of a project description, the project. Or some background first. The project, of course, owns and operates the properties located at 600 Roble, 1109, and 1230 San Pablo Avenue. The address for the property will be 600 Roble. It will not have a San Pablo address. It will have a Roble Avenue address. Of course, the project is bordered by San Pablo Avenue to the south, Roble to the east, Encina to the north, and Madrone to the west. The MRK partners are proposing to construct 179 affordable units for seniors. As the Planning Commission Subcommittee met on May 12th, 2021 to discuss this project, and kind of the main issues that were discussed were included the parking, the articulation of the east elevation, which would be the elevation facing Encina, or on the Encina side, and also wanted to look at altering the Encina Drive elevation and adding some additional landscaping. The subcommittee also wanted the owners to add some additional parking if they could. However, given site constraints, additional parking was not found feasible. And to kind of give you some ideas, the site plan that you have right now, based on some of those discussions, is that at the beginning of the project, Encina had just a straight across, all the way across, one elevation, no landscaping, butted up right against the sidewalk. However, as you can see on that elevation has changed. It's got, after working with the applicant and working with the property, they were able to split the two buildings to kind of give an open space, or kind of like a definition of the two wings, into one wing into two with a little breezeway so you can see through. They were able to push back some of the, in terms of setback, in certain areas. So it kind of gives some articulation along that line. And they also added, with the ability to move back that elevation, they were able to add some additional landscaping to kind of break up the project. All the projects, it's 100% affordable housing for seniors. The development, like as stated before, was 16 studios, 128 one-bedroom units, and 9 two-bedroom units. One which will be a manager's unit in the 4-story building. The ground floor comprises of a lobby, mailboxes and stairs, elevators, a spacious community room with a kitchen, computer station, laundry and fitness center facility, an exterior bike storage area, and the underground parking area. So for residents, and there also will have some bike racks along the entrance on Roble, or the main entrance. The Roble parking area consists of about 25 spaces on the outside of the building. And let me back up here. I'm sorry. There are pretty much two general parking areas. The parking area that faces Roble and San Pablo, and then the little parking lot on Madrone. The Madrone area parking consists of approximately 13 spaces. The Roble Avenue parking area consists of 25 spaces on the outside of the building, and approximately 50 located in the underground facility under wings C and D. All the parking stalls will be EV ready, and the project will be required to install 2 EV stations for electric vehicles. So right now the codes don't require that all parking stalls be set for electric vehicles. However, they are all going to be basically plumbed for. So all the conduit, all the wiring will be in there. And so as the project progresses and as more electric vehicles come into play, they'll have the ability to add additional EV stations as the project moves forward. The Vista Woods is providing 18 bicycle stalls on site, so there'll be some on the Roble side. There could be some on the Madrone side. Of course, all of the units, but there'll be about 207 spaces within the 179 units. So the units, if somebody would have their own bike, they can keep them in their own unit, and there'd be enough space for them. In terms of the required land use approvals for the project, the entitlements and city approvals for the project include a comprehensive design review, an affordable housing regulatory agreement, and a California Environmental Quality Act determination. And pursuant to 17.10060, the zoning code, the comprehensive design review final approval is normally issued by the Planning Commission with an appeal to the council, and the affordable housing agreement will be approved at the city council at a later date. That's something that we're still working on with the applicant, and that agreement needs to be approved by the council. It's a little different than the Saha project because the city owned the property. So there's a little difference in how these things are moving between the commission and the council. This is a privately owned parcel. And so the affordability agreement is just a separate entity, a separate piece of that project. In terms of the site parameters, as stated below already, the site is bounded by Encina to the north and San Pablo to the south, Roble to the east, and Madrone to the west. The surrounding uses of the project, you have Lisa's Hair Studio and a little park to the east with the Pinole Flyers convenience store. You have a storage yard, or not a storage yard, but a house to the west of the west property line on Roble. There's existing houses and existing apartments on Madrone as well that surrounds the property. And there are some single family residential units both along Encina would be on the north side of Encina, and there are a couple of single-family residential units along Roble Avenue. The project site has a topographic issues that would be needed to be mitigated. The property high point is in the northeast corner of the property, and it drops to the southwest corner of the property. So as part of the design package, I outlined it in C2.1 and 2.3 of the Vistawood design package. So pretty much from Encina and Roble is the high point of the property, and as it goes west towards the corner of Madrone and San Pablo, it drops. The site has been vacant. Well, portions of the site has been vacant for a number of years. Previous uses include a union hall building. That use has some other uses as well. The storage yard has been there for a long time. And then there's a vacant piece of property, which has been a number of uses, but it's been vacant for a number of years. The driveways are still visible and usable for the Vista Woods project, so they'll be using some of the driveways on Madrone, and there is some access on San Pablo that they will be utilizing, as well as on Roble. There won't be any access from Encina, so all the access will either come from Roble, San Pablo, or Madrone. So as part of the analysis of the project, the site. Dave, if you go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks. Kind of just give you some project stats, some small ones. MRK is proposing to construct 179 units, 178 family units for single or for seniors, one manager unit for a total of 136,000 square feet. Of course, as stated before, 16 studios, 128 one bedrooms, and 35 two bedrooms. MRK Partners is proposing 88 vehicle parking stalls and 18 in the underground parking storage. That's 18, should be 18 bicycle stalls throughout the building. MRK is proposing 20,738 square feet of balcony and outdoor deck areas, which as you watch the site plan, there are balconies all along the Encina side, all along the San Pablo side, and as long as some deck areas in the main portion, or what we call wing B of the building. It should be Saha. It should be MRK Partners is proposing 30,000 square feet of landscaping and open space. So if we go to the next slide. These are some of the development standards, and we'll go over these kind of a little more in detail. This is kind of just a quick look. The height, this is basically required based on our zoning code as well, and then what is being proposed. I guess the height requirement for this area within the specific plan is 50 feet, and the proposed is 60 feet 7 inches. The setbacks fronts are 0 to 10 in the front, 0 on the sides. Unless you have some existing residential, then it's 15, and same with the rear of the property, 0 except when it's adjacent to 15. The project is proposing a side setback of 1 foot to 14 foot 11, and that's based on the Encina side. Where they can't get to that 15 feet, and we'll talk about all of that. In terms of parking, senior parking is a little different. It's basically one space per dwelling unit, and 0.3 per visitor parking. Which actually, after reviewing that code, it's actually just one unit. The 0.3 visitor spaces doesn't apply to senior units. It only applies to but market rate apartment complexes with 1 or 2 bedrooms. So they are proposing, they still are required 179 resident parking stalls. They're proposing 88. And then we'll talk about the special height requirement. If you go to the next thing, the 300 square foot per unit of improved usable space equals 53,700 square feet. They have provided 30,792. They're asking for a concession, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, the density bonus is an applicant's request, and the MRK is proposing an 80% density bonus in compliance with new state law and density bonus. And so we'll kind of get into that. So with that, in terms of the state density bonus law, I mean, that's what a lot of the housing laws that we've talked about earlier in the year and that were adopted by the legislature and all active in January 1st. Most of those laws are covered in California state density bonus law sections 65915, and basically been in effect since January 2021. The Vista Woods qualifies for incentives and exemptions by the following criteria. One, this is 100% deed restricted affordable to low-income households. The project is 100% deed restricted dwelling units to senior housing, age 62 and above. The site is within 1/2 mile of a bus stop with service greater than 8 times a day. The state density bonus law also allows Vista Woods to have by right requests that are automatically granted. I have listed those by rights requests, which have to do with the 0 parking required, the 80% density bonus. There's 4 incentive concessions and 4 waivers of development standards, and we'll go into those here just now. In terms of the parking, as part of the Section 65915 Part 3A of the California Government Code, basically because of the project and the senior project, basically under that criteria, development for rent housing development for individuals 62 years, that 0 parking is actually required. And the development has paratransit service or unobstructed access within 1/2 mile to a fixed bus route that operates at least 8 times a day, which they do. As part of the section, as part of our code, we require that senior projects in 1 space per unit. Vista Woods is proposing 179 units. That requires individuals over the age of 62. Vista Woods is proposing to construct 88 parking stalls throughout the project, and all 88 stalls will be EV ready and will have 2 spaces with charging stations. As part of the 80% density bonus, Vista Woods is asking for an 80% density bonus. As stated above, the density bonus is allowed under the state density bonus law. Below is the calculation of the required affordable units, and I've calculated those. It's established in section 17.02A. All projects for rental ownership or residential development of 4 or more units located in the city shall have at least 15% of the total units. And of those units, 40% must be affordable for very low income households. And I've also calculated those below. So Vista Woods zoning is very high density residential, which in our specific plan is 35.1 to 50 units per acre. The Vista Woods project encompasses 2.1 acres. And based on that, they are required on the low end, they're required to have at least 71 units. Of course, I'm rounding up 70.55 to 71 units. And of those 71 units, 15% of that is 11. So they would have to be required 11 affordable units are required at a minimum. And of those 11 units, 4.4 or 5 units must be for very low income households at a minimum. In terms of the maximum, there's at 50 units per acre, that's 101 units based on the rounding. Plus they're required that 15% or 16 affordable units. And 6 of those 16 units, 7 are for very low income households at a minimum. That's our requirement no matter what. That's our density bonus. That's our inclusionary zoning requirement as part of our municipal code. The density bonus request is based on 71 times 80% units are in addition to the 71, that equals 127 or 28 units based on the 71 total units of the 30 units per acre. And if I know if you have questions, I know you're going to ask. As part of the maximum of 101 units, the 80% equals 80.8 units or 81, or in addition to the 101, that equals 181 to 182 units. So based on the criteria of them, I mean a senior project, an affordable project, within the 1/2 mile of transit, they are eligible for that 80% density bonus, which they could go to a maximum of 182 units. However, based on their proposal, they're proposing 179. So in conclusion, Vista Woods proposal is consistent with the state density bonus law in section 17.32 of the Pinole zoning ordinance. In terms of their incentives and concessions, the section 65.95 of the California Government Code requires cities to allow for 4 incentives and concessions of development standards based on the facts that this project is 100% affordable. The city is required to grant the concessions unless the request would have a specific adverse impact on public health or safety that cannot be mitigated. This is a very high standard, which I know Alex has talked about many times about what is considered a very high standard. I've listed the 3 incentives below that Vista Woods is requesting to modify. The 3 corridor specific, the first one is a side yard setback. The 3 corridor specific plan requires that building set should be 0 except when adjacent to residential users. The setback requirement when adjacent residential is 15 feet. They are asking, Vista Woods is requesting that the side yard setback on Encina Avenue be adjusted to between 1 foot and 14 foot, depending on the location along Encina Avenue. Due to the property restraints, they are not able to get the full setback. Vista Woods was able to get additional setback by splitting up the Encina Avenue elevations. All of the other setbacks along the property are within the requirement of the plan. They're also asking, as part of an incentive and concessions, a reduction of open space. As part of the Pinole zoning code, we require that each project have 300 square feet per unit, which in Vista Woods case, on the 179 units, they would be required to have 53,700 square feet of open space. Vista Woods is proposing 30,792 square feet of open space, which is basically just 57% of the standard. The third concession is compact parking. The Pinole zoning code requires that projects have up to 25% compact parking spaces, but based upon the city standards listed above, this project would be allowed to have 45 compact parking spacing. Vista Woods is requesting that the city waive the 25% standard and allow for the proposed 62.5% ratio of compact spaces. So those are the three concessions that we talked about, and those are, I've kind of outlined those in the black. In the bottom, these are the waivers of development standards. And basically, section 65915E 1 and 2 of the California Code requires that an applicant can request a waiver of the development standards that will have an effect of physically precluding the construction of the development at the density allowed under the density bonus law. So I've listed below Vista Woods' request for development standards. The first one is special height requirement, rear or side setback. The 3 corridor specific plan requirement for a special height requirement requires any story above 2 stories have a 45-degree setback as shown in figure 6.3 of the 3 corridor specific plan. So basically anything above 3 story, then we have to have a rear setback. It's usually about 12.5 feet. That's usually about what it is. And then each story above has additional setbacks to that. So Vista Woods is requesting relief of that standard because if enforced would have effect of physically precluding the construction of the development. The special height requirement across the street setback. So the 3 corridor specific plan requires for special height requirement require any story above 3 stories have a 45-degree setback as shown in figure 6.4 of the 3 corridor specific plan. So we not only do we have a rear side setback, but we have across the street. So, but they allow to go 1 additional story, so they would have to set back the 4th story approximately roughly 12.5 feet. Vista Woods is requesting relief of that standard because if force would have an effect of physically precluding the construction of the development. So in terms of the general plan consistency, the property located at 600 Roble, 1100 and 1230 San Pablo has a general plan land use designation of MUSA, mixed use subarea. The mixed use subarea is defined as encouraging mixed residential and commercial development that is united by transit and pedestrian improvements. This land use designation allows all types of commercial and residential as either a single use or a combination with other allowable commercial and residential uses. The project helps to implement numerous policies within different elements of the general plan, including the community character element, land use and economic development element, circulation element, health and safety, natural resources, open space, and sustainability. Applicable policies are provided below. And so I've listed policies in each of those elements that would pertain to this project. As required, I mean, the requirement for general plan consistency doesn't require that the projects they meet every single policy and every policy implementation or action measure. It's as long as the intent of the project and we can find policies and goals that can fit this project. So with that, I've gone through all the policies. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but if you have any questions, they're listed in the staff report. As part of the specific plan and zoning consistency, I've listed the 4 policies, the 6 land use policies, and there's probably a couple other ones that I probably could have listed, but 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8 as part of the consistency. As part of the consistency standard. And so just kind of going over the overall design of the project. The scale and detail of the buildings were designed to contextually blend with this section of San Pablo Avenue streetscape, which is a blend of older buildings with varied setbacks and varied building forms. To activate the San Pablo corridor and keeping with priorities and principles set forth in the 3 corridor specific plan, the design places the lobby and entrance, service office, and property management along the project frontage, featuring storefront windows with minimal setback. And actually, in this case, it's more on the Roble Avenue. So even though you can see it from the San Pablo side, and this one I was not sure. I mean, it doesn't cover the whole floor of the San Pablo, but if you're in, we call it Wing A, that's our Wing 1, the first wing that's faced along Pablo Avenue. At the end of that building is all of the major entrance into the building. So that's what I included as part of the south end of that. The proposed site plan includes large green space. And it doesn't have a children's play area that kind of got left in, but it does have our community garden beds, but it does have places where people can sit. It does have people can stay, that can be out in the front area, which would be away from San Pablo, with some architectural features. In terms of the design review, we're required for findings on this project, and so I've listed the findings of this project below. The proposed project is consistent with the objectives of the general plan. I've kind of stated those with the general plan as stated above in the report. General plan specific plan goals and policy items have been identified to satisfy the consistency. Architecture for the project includes a mix of materials and colors. The mix of materials and colors will be used to provide a modern looking building. The building will be a mixture of stucco. The building will include individual balconies. So that's kind of a different look on San Pablo as well as on the rest of the building. The landscape plan includes removal of some of the existing trees on the project site and replacement with new trees. And the conceptual landscape plan is provided with potential trees, shrubs, and ground cover choices that are drought tolerant and well suited for the Pinole climate. Much of the proposed new landscaping material proposed inside the complex and with some landscaping along the San Pablo Avenue and Encina Avenue and Encina. As described in the landscape plan on pages L1.01 and L8.13, they are going to plant 48 trees plus shrubs and ground covers throughout the property. The project will be replacing approximately 51 existing trees. Based on the layout of the plan, the trees that will need to be removed, the trees will be removed. There are 3 heritage trees on the site that are going to have to be removed. As stated above, in terms of the density bonus and affordable housing, I've kind of stated those requirements. It's the maximum density for this project is 50 units per acre, but with the density bonus, they're allowed to go higher than that. And based on the 100 units, Vista Woods is required to provide 15 units for 80% of the median income, and 7 of those are required to be persons making 120% of the median income. However, since all of these units are going to be senior affordable, they all have to fall within the 80 to 120% of median rent income. As part of the density bonus, they are allowed concessions and waivers, and so I've listed the concessions. They're requesting the setback, they're requesting the open space square footage, and as well as the height standard. Based on the statement above, concessions requested by the applicant are consistent with state law allowance for density bonus concessions. So then I included the project finding number 2, that the project will not create conflicts with vehicular, bicycle, or pedestrian transportation modes of circulation. Vista Woods has 3 accesses. The first access is on Madrone. The second is located on Roble. The third access is located on San Pablo. The access on Madrone is to a full intersection of Madrone and San Pablo. That's a 4-way intersection. It's only controlled 2 ways of the intersection. And it has full turning movements on Madrone and San Pablo. So the San Pablo Roble Avenue intersection is a full intersection access that will have all the turning movements available for vehicles. The San Pablo access is also a right in, right out with all turning movements available for vehicles. The San Pablo access is a right in, right out. So vehicle coming to the projects and leaving the complex, and also to be able to access the hair place, and they would have more of a shared driveway in that regard. The project is proposing 18 bicycle stalls or racks or stalls to be able to to put bicycles in. And of course, 207 parking within the 179 units. So there's additional, each unit will have a space for bicycles. And that San Pablo Avenue has improved curb gutter sidewalk for pedestrian access in the front of the project area. There is a crosswalk with high visibility striping and pedestrian crossing signage on the west leg of the San Pablo Madrone Avenue and San Pablo Avenue Roble Avenue intersection with stop controls for the north and south bound traffic. The conclusion is based on the above, the proposed project will not create conflicts with vehicular, bicycle, or transportation modes of circulation. The site layout, meaning orientation and placement of the buildings and parking areas, as well as the landscaping, lighting, and other development features. The project layout has most of the amenities within the complex, as seen on pages A013 of the project plan. The project site's layout, as well as landscaping, lighting, and other development features, are compatible with and complement the existing surrounding environment and ultimate character of the area under the general plan and applicable specific plans. The project plan submitted with the application provides a landscaping and lighting plan that is consistent with the general plan, 3 corridor specific plan, and the zoning ordinance regulations. Conclusion, staff is based on the above discussions. Basically, this project meets that finding. Finding number 4, called qualifying single family residential. This project is proposing a multifamily residential project. So the 3 corridor specific plan includes guidelines for multifamily residential projects, which include design standards for massing, landscape, setbacks, and exterior building design. The design that Vista Woods has proposed has included elements that are consistent with the 3 corridor specific plan and the very high density residential zoning, which is the density between 35.1 and 50 dwelling units per acre. Conclusion, the staff is based on the discussion above, the project is consistent with the 3 corridor specific plan design guidelines. In conducting comprehensive design review, design standards, approving authority shall consider the following. I've included those four areas. Considerations relating to the layout, the orientation of the building. Of course, the development package dated 6/18/2021, as well as the assessment of the project above, shows that this project has been designed to consider all of the development features applicable to the project site and surrounding properties. Project orientation along San Pablo, Roble, and Encina Avenues and Madrone Avenue allow the project to have different orientations along the 4 roadways. Conclusion is that based on the discussion in the staff report and above, the considerations that this finding has been met. And 2, again, that's a traffic finding, the consideration relating to traffic safety and traffic congestions. As shown on page A02.0, the project has 3 different ingresses and egresses. I've outlined those accesses on Madrone and Roble, as well as the full intersections, and as well as the accesses on San Pablo Avenue, that being a right in, right out. The layout of the site for the driveways to be spread out through the project, and so that not all traffic is coming from one ingress and egress of the property. The concession of eliminating 45 parking stalls will eliminate on-site conflict within the development. Based on the discussion above and in the staff report, the project design addresses and considers traffic safety, traffic congestion, and the effects of development of traffic conditions. The project also includes appropriately designed vehicles and pedestrian entrance, exits, driveways, and walkways, and there's parking facilities are provided consistent with requested density bonus concessions. Sorry, this is taking so long. It's a big project, so just want to make sure everybody's still out there. Finding 3, considerations necessary to ensure that proposed development is consistent with the general plan and all applicable plans. As stated above in this report, general plan and specific plan goals, policies, and action items have been identified to satisfy consistency with this project and the City of Pinole general plan and the 3 corridor specific plan. The project is also consistent with state density bonus law for the density of the residential units. And then the 4th, or the conclusion of that, is that this finding has been met based on the project consistent with the general plan and the 3 corridor specific plan. In consideration relating to the availability of city services, including water, but not limited to water, sewer, drainage, police, fire. Based on discussion with city staff and a review of available utility information, the project has availability of water, sewer, drainage, police, and fire. The applicant will be required to install new green infrastructure in compliance with the most current Contra Costa Clearwater Program guidelines, as required under the current regional water quality control permit. The project will also be required to add trash capture devices basins within the parking lot prior to the issuance of building permit for compliance. Conclusion, based on the discussion of the information in the staff report, city services are available and adequate to serve the site. The CEQA review, you have for you the CEQA documents, and all the technical appendices. And based on those, we have several categorical exemptions which are applicable to the categories of projects and activities that the lead agency has determined generally do not pose a risk of significant impacts on the environment. So we've included projects exempt under 15332 of the state CEQA guidelines, which is a class 32 infill, and under the government code section 65457 and state CEQA guidelines section 15182, specific planning consistency. The details of these exemptions is located in attachment 2 of this report, which you have with you. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission take the following actions and after holding a public hearing, that they adopt Resolution 2111 approving a comprehensive design review, tree removal permit, and CEQA notice of exemption for the Vista Woods project. And I'm sure there's going to be questions. If you have any questions of staff, I am here. The applicant is here as well. We'll have a number of different, depending on the questions you need on that. And I also want to see if our environmental consultant is also here. So if you have questions on the environmental for our environmental consultant, she is available as well. So with that, that ends my presentation, and look forward to move on to the question and answer period.
Okay, thank you, David. Let's start with David Curran.
Okay, there we go. First of all, I want to thank the staff and the development subcommittee for all the work they did to make this a presentable item for tonight, because I know there's been a lot of give and take and a lot of questions, and I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel here. But I do have some questions. It wasn't clear to me that the cell phone tower that's on San Pablo, that's very much beloved by the city, is that on the project or is that on a different parcel?
Well, I think it's on the parcel. However, it's within there's a 100-foot radius that has to be met based on the I guess it's the PUC, in which the building is 100 feet away from the tower.
Okay.
But the tower is, I'm pretty sure the tower is on their property. Okay,
because I'm sure all the citizens of Pinole would hate to lose that very attractive artificial tree. Now, I saw some references to solar panels. Are there going to be solar panels on this property?
Yeah, on the roof, there'll be solar panels. They'll be wired. They'll definitely be wired for solar panels, and I think they are included as part of the project. But they definitely will have. They showed it where they had solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
And it'll definitely be wired for them. From my understanding is they're going to be up there when the project's done. But the applicant can answer that question.
Okay. And also, this project's going to have a lot of senior residents who hopefully aren't going to have vehicles. I was wondering if the property owners or managers were going to have any amenities, like, for instance, a van available for the residents, especially if they want to take them to the senior center or whatever. Or is that going to be provided by the management team?
As part of the conditions, there's a condition regarding the transportation development, the TDM, development management plan. So we'll be working with them on putting that together in terms of access for the residents, for different ride shares, different bus passes, those types of things. So they'll have to do a transportation development mitigation plan.
Great, and also because these are going to be seniors. Hopefully using public transportation. I just wonder if there's going to be any consideration for a traffic light at Robo installed so that the seniors can be crossing the streets without worrying about traffic. And if there is any consideration, who would be responsible for paying for that or proceeding with that?
Well, they'll be paying their transportation impact fees as part of the project, and so we'd have to go into the capital improvement plan and look at. We would probably do. I don't necessarily think a traffic signal, at least at this point, be warranted, but we might be able to do one of those high visibility crosswalks, lighted crosswalks type things at the location, and that's something that the city would have to program as part of our CIP project area.
Yeah,
they would be. they would be submitting transportation dollars as part of impact fees.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so much. I mean, obviously, the crosswalk would be important, but also I think there, with 179 people, 88 cars, there's going to be a lot of left turns there and traffic. And I just think that the this project would warrant a traffic light at that intersection. You know, and I don't know whether we could put that as a condition of approval or whether the traffic study would address that. Okay, and the last question I have, well, actually, is a comment too, is that I recognize that the state has passed a lot of laws recently that kind of take a lot of discretion away from planning commissions, and that's why I kind of think it's misleading when we make findings saying that the project is consistent with the general plan and the specific plans, because they really aren't. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to question their legality or anything like that, but I think it might be good to put some phraseology in there saying consistent with with state law and the general plan, a specific plan, just to make the public understand that you know, that the state has kind of usurped a lot of the discretions that cities have as far as affordable housing goes. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that you know, that we're seeing a real push in affordable housing when we have a real crisis, real homeless crisis. But I just think it might be good to put some of that syntax in the you know, in some of the statements.
Okay. We'll do that in the future.
Yeah, and the last question I have is that you know, when I looked at the site, I noticed that on Encina, you know, the residential property owners who were there, they're kind of abutting the property, and although they are elevated by, I have a hard time estimating height, but so I would say 20 or 30 feet. I'm not really sure what the impact will be of 4 stories right next door to their property, and I was wondering if you could make a comment. I know you just discussed this in your project a little bit, but how much of a impact is the 4-story height going to have on the immediate neighbors of this property?
Well, on the corner, probably on the impact. I mean, there is some impact to the neighbors on the corner just because of the topography of the property and the way it sits. It was much higher on the Encina Roble side than it is on the San Pablo Madrone side. And so with the landscaping and some of those buildings pushed back, it actually created less of an impact to the neighbors in terms of those areas. And then it's broken up and it's just not all one. It's just not all one building. So there would be some shading, but it doesn't fall into and I can let the environmental consultant speak to some of that, but it doesn't fall into a significant impact based on the environmental qualifications that we need to abide by. So, but there will be, I mean, the people will be looking at, you know, probably the 2nd and 3rd stories or 3rd and 4th stories of those buildings. Because the houses are actually a little higher. Well, I wouldn't say a little higher, but they'll probably be looking into the 3rd and 4th stories. The underground parking and with the underground parking kind of raises it a little bit. I mean, they're only about 10 feet above the height limit in that one area. Mm-hmm. The first, what I'll call Wing D or Wing C, which is the building between Roble and the second building. That's probably the building, because as the property lands and as the buildings sit, it kind of goes at a little bit of an angle back, and so. But we can also have the applicant talk to that as well.
Well, is there a way to maybe mitigate this by putting a living hedge there or something like that? You know, some kind of trees or something like that, so that the
well, there's landscaping all along. There's landscaping all along Encina, and there's actually even more landscaping as part of as part of when the buildings were broken apart, we were able to move them back a little bit. So there's a lot more landscaping area, and that's the setback between the 1 foot and the 14 feet 11, because they just can't get the 15 foot in certain areas. And so, but there is landscaping with trees and stuff as part of the landscape plan that will as the property grow, as the trees grow and the property's there for a number of years, within about 5 or 10 years, the trees will be breaking up a lot of that vision across the board.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an issue, and I'm not really sure how to resolve it. And just a final comment is that I never knew that Madrone Street existed until this project, because it's like I drive by there and it's almost nondescript. But anyways, that's all I have, and it's a huge project, going to have a huge impact on the city. I think that the state laws are right in trying to address it for affordable housing, and it's going to be a new era. I think everybody needs to understand that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Adam?
Yeah, I had one question. I think this is more not sure if it's for the staff or for the applicant, but I'll ask it anyways. In regards to the setbacks, there was a comment made that changing the setbacks would preclude the ability to construct. And I was curious if you could go into more what that meant.
You mean the setback? What that meant was, as you're going up, they wouldn't be able to get the density they need to construct the project in terms of their tax credits and those types of things. And so the setback is, and I can't, if you look in the specific plan on the figure 6.3 and 6.4, you'll see that when we'll say it on the Encina side, those projects are right across the street. So pretty much everything over 2 stories would be set back. It's set back off of the building. So the building at a 45-degree angle, like it looked like more like a triangle like this.
Right.
Okay. So the building's set back. This is the building, right? Then the building's got to be set back, and you have a 45-degree angle above the second story on the one across the street, right? Or the one across the way. And then so the 3rd and 4th stories would be built. So you wouldn't be able to build, they wouldn't be able to construct these stories because it would cut the number of units based on that setback.
Okay.
That's the same what?
So it's not necessarily a physical inability to construct, it's more of a return on the investment.
Right. They wouldn't be able to construct. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because they're proposing for tax credits for this project. So that's state tax credits.
And then the second question I had, I know you mentioned EV and then solar, and I'm not familiar with the Contra Costa Clearwater program requirements, but are there other sustainability measures being proposed, for the project? It has to be Tele 24, but anything above and beyond kind of that.
At this point, not that I'm aware of. I know we talked a little bit about the building going all electric, but I'm not sure. I mean, we can't necessarily require that because we don't have reach codes that would require that. So at least at this time. So I know that's something that we talked to the applicant about doing. But for right now, it's just the solar and the EV all the EV parking stalls and that. So.
Okay. I think the only other question I had was when you're going through the design review, what was kind of the consideration as far as the facade frontage for facing San Pablo, as far as articulation and coloration was, what were the kind of the guiding thoughts you were looking at as far as, how it blended in with other kind of projects, especially consideration of the Saha project, which is, really only about, a quarter mile down the street or so, how blending in with the other projects that are being proposed right now at that time.
Yeah, it's more in the colors per se than the style of structure. I mean, the Saha building's a little different in the fact that they've got more of that that business front on the bottom, where this is a pure residential building, and so so some of the color elevations kind of go with that, and the mixture of materials along the frontage. So that's where the consistency, because there really isn't along the San Pablo corridor, there isn't a set standard in terms of what color, what mixture, what's that. So we ask for some additional coloring or a different undulation in terms of balconies and those types of things that would kind of give the building a different look. And so they were able to do that on some of the, like A310. They added some features as part of the wings A and B. So to add more color, to add more distinction of the building. So that's kind of how we went on that.
Okay, so it was done kind of just for that particular building and kind of not in isolation, but kind of as a standalone piece.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's my questions for staff. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Frankie?
Thank you. Dave, thank you and the staff for all the hard work that's went into bring this to us tonight. Having walked in that area a number of times, we really, from a safety perspective, it would be a really strong, good idea for us to, especially because they're seniors, to put a stoplight either on 5th or on Roble. And the reality is I almost got hit crossing the street, even where it's marked really nice, in broad daylight. So I'd be a little nervous about putting over, 100 62 plus members of the community in harm's way by not including that as part of how we look for this project, just from a pure safety standpoint. But I love it so far. So if we could just look at when we do the traffic study, some way of implementing a light somewhere for those senior citizens to get across to that bus stop that's over on the other side.
Right. Well, there will be a bus stop on on the side of the apartment complex. They're building a new bus stop and bus shelter, so they'll have it on both sides. So yeah, but I understand what you're saying. They need to. Right. We're gonna take a look at that, and we might be able to improve, because I know that was. I'm pretty sure that was a project in the CIP. I just don't know where it's at. I know because I know Tamara and I talked about it when the project originally came back 5 or 6, 6 or 7 months ago. So excellent. So
you might already be ahead of this. Yeah. So if you're already ahead of it, thank you. Thank you.
We've got some transportation dollars that we could throw. They have impact dollars that they'll be paying as part of their impact fee that we might take a look at and see what the cost would be and go from there. So we're gonna have the ability to do that, or at least light up the intersection or do something to make it a little safer.
Okay. And then on the trees on the entryway, there was some discussion in the documents about the trees, and they want to put the sequoia trees there. If we could ask that they just buy some that are a little bit more mature. And the reason is if folks are standing outside, right, that'll give them some shading to protect them from the sun as they're waiting for the shuttle services and so on and so forth. They also have included seating areas in that front area. If there's any way to look at just including maybe a cover, because I'm trying to imagine myself as a senior citizen living there, right? They're going to use WestCat shuttle services or something, so they need enough seating so that when the WestCat shuttle service comes around to pick them up, that they can be outside if it's raining, protected, and get right on, right? So not big changes, just slight modifications there. So just larger trees to protect them from the heat when they're waiting on their shuttles, and then covers over the seating areas in the front. Okay. Then we might also want to be engaging conversations with the folks on City Council that are managing with our relationship with WestCat Day, because if we're adding that many more seniors, we need to make sure that the county and our regional transportation, that they're gearing up the resources to help support these folks that may not own a car. Okay. And then I know this, I don't mean to be nitpicky, but I'd also, because it's such a nice building, Dave, if we can just ask that there's absolutely no storage on the outdoor balconies anywhere as part of this project. As you can tell, the developer spent quite a bit of money giving us a really nice design. It would be really sad for it someday for someone to start storing boxes or whatever outside and taking away from the nice work that went into making this project come to life. So those are the ones that came to mind for me. I hand it back to you, Chairman, and we'll let you move on to the next commissioner.
Okay, Raphael.
Thank you. So I'm going to try and stick primarily to questions here and avoid giving comments until later. But I guess my first question is with regards to balconies. I know that the structure of this is built out with very strong balconies. They're a significant part of the aesthetics of the design. And I was wondering, does the city of Pinole have a balcony inspection ordinance or any rules around balconies as part of architectural designs? Because I know that there have been significant issues with balconies as part of major projects elsewhere in the region and inspections of them and potential issues linked to that. It probably wouldn't be a problem for a while, one way or the other, but I think it's something we should know before we approve it. Secondarily, with regards to aesthetics, I recognize that given the limitations on setbacks, the designers want to mitigate the overall impact of the buildings by going for more drab colors, I think was the terminology they used. But I was wondering whether that was a design choice or if it was a request of the city's general aesthetics policy, a preference for more drabness in design, because, and this is tilting slightly into comments, so my apologies, but no problem. I think that there's a risk of the buildings appearing more dated over time, given the color scheme and the design that they've chosen, just because of the way that the colors interact with the balconies and the overall historical landscape understanding of that design style of building in other cities in the region. With regards to the sustainability element, I have a bunch of comments about different parts of the sustainability element that can and I think should be included in why this project is a good idea. But there was one more particular question that I had with regards to optimizing energy efficiency and renewable energy. I believe there was one moment while I find the particular segment in the general plan. Yes. Action SE 4.5.4 on page 415 of the general plan. It says Pinole will protect active and passive solar design elements and systems from shading by neighboring structures and trees as consistent with existing tree shading requirements. And I note that in the shadow report, it says that most buildings aren't going to be affected by shadows, but that there's one building that will be affected for exactly 3 hours a day by south-facing shadows. And I was wondering whether the city had any ordinances on the impact of shadows being cast on solar power generation, because I did know that the hours on which shadows would be striking the building would be heading towards peak solar generation time, noon and thereabouts. Let's see. With regards to solar power, I know the other commissioner's comments earlier about the actual implementation of solar panels. One thing I'm curious about is whether the project is planning to implement any resiliency technologies like battery backup to go along with the solar panels, and what percentage of the overall power demands of the site they expect the solar installation to meet if they're planning to install one. Because one thing that comes to mind for me with 100% senior population is an increased need for lifeline medical supports that requires reliable power supplies. And depending on how exactly renewable energy is set up, even if you have solar power, if PG&E is shutting down the grid, if you don't have battery backups, it's not going to be able to provide power to members of the community who might require it for their core life sustainability functions. Let's see. With regards to the retaining walls, one thing I don't quite understand about the project is that, if I recall what I read properly, it said that there wouldn't be a need for any retaining walls with a height of above 3 feet due to the way that the fill of the land would be put in. But if you're looking at sheet A310 of the larger design plan application and some other areas as well, it looks like the abutment of the sort of rear building C and D, I guess, would be going right up against sort of if I'm imaging the properly correctly, a slope leading up to and seen as the property builds up. So I'm curious as to how exactly the project is going to level out the overall property to have a flat pad to put everything on without requiring retaining walls above that height. And it's probably just that I'm not quite understanding the diagrams properly and that somebody will be able to explain it. But it is a question that I have with regards to that. Let's see, were there any other questions of the diagrams in particular? Just having a quick look through the various other attachments. I guess with regards to our conditions of approval, I noted that condition number 15 appears to be blank. Is that just a structural thing in order to break up the flow of the conditions, or is there supposed to be something there that we're not seeing? Let's see. And I think that's all my questions for now. It's possible there's some other stuff I noted down that I just haven't managed to find looking through all the various attachments and whatnot. But if that's the case, I can always come back to it in comments. Thank you.
I can answer some of those questions, and then I can answer, and then we can turn some of those over to the project applicant, which I know they have a small presentation to give. But basically, in terms of the shading, in terms of that, the requirement is that on the winter solstice, there's a 3-hour window between 12 and 3, and that's the only day that. And a house isn't more than like 50% of shaded within that time period. So when they did the shading study, it showed that the house, originally when they did the shading study, it showed that the house on Encino, not the corner house, but I think the next house, The sun was shaded up to their garage for that period of time. However, they made some adjustments with the setbacks and that, so they were able to meet that 3-hour requirement for shading. And so it doesn't affect the roof of the building. It never did affect the roof of the houses across the street. It was more towards where the garage and kind of the front of the house as part of the shading. So we're okay with that. In terms of the design choices, that was particularly with the applicant. I mean, we can ask them, you know, change some colors or do some different colors or themes or those types of things. I'm sure that's not really a big issue. I think we can work with them on that. Or if they pick those colors for a certain reason, we can ask them about that. And I'll have to refer the condition 15. That was just a break. That was just there was no condition there. That was just a break in the conditions, and the numbering kind of kept following through. So we'll correct that in the next one. So actually of the 58 conditions, there's only really 57 because there is no condition 15, or you know what I mean. So that was just a space broken out in the conditions of approval. In terms of the retaining wall, I'll let the engineers. I know they have an engineer with them tonight, so they'll be able to explain both the battery storage for the power and the retaining wall issues. So that's kind of my. And regarding the tree covers and the regional agencies, yeah, we'll be in contact with Westcat to make sure that the bus, because now that we've got more people on, we got Saha's project on San Pablo. We've got more residential units coming on all of our 3 major corridors that buses run through. So they're gonna probably have to start looking at increasing the volume as these projects come online. Which in terms of construction time, most of these projects won't be online for at least another 2 to 4 years. So within that time frame, they're gonna need to pick up different routes to be able to, or add additional buses to these routes for our residents. So we'll be working with Westcat and also WIGTAC to make sure in terms of unmet transit needs and through that process as well. So we can do that. In terms of no storage outdoors, we can. I think there are some rulings, and I'll have to check with the applicant can answer that. But we can. That is something that we could add. We could add something on there that there shall be no storage on the balconies. So that's something that if the commission as a whole wants to add that condition onto the property, that's legitimate. But I think they do have some rules and regulations regarding that. And if they do, because we have a balcony inspection program, we inspect balconies every 5 years, just to make sure that they're copacetic and that they're meeting all the requirements and that. And so, but also the other thing is that, and probably the applicant will touch on a little bit, because these projects are tax credit projects, there is a maintenance program that has to go with these buildings to make sure they maintain these tax credits through the life of the project. So the maintenance of these projects will be maintained much better than your average type of apartment complex, only because there's a tax credit involved, and so the maintenance on that. But the city does have a building inspection program that we inspect balconies every 5 years, or we try to get out there every 5 years to inspect balconies. So that was the balconies. So the other questions we can ask the applicant. So unless there are any additional, I'm sure I haven't heard from Ann yet. So I'm sure there's. I guess the last one.
Yep. Yeah, Ann, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. There were many things that were brought up, but one of my main concerns is bike ped safety. And that is partly the applicant and partly the city. There is no way for a senior to easily walk down to the senior center. I mean, they'd have to hoof it a long ways to get there, but without crossing the street. And I agree with the other commissioners in their suggestion about a stoplight at Roble. that we really pursue that, because I was out there today and traffic just moves on San Pablo so quickly. And I can imagine, I mean, I live next to the another senior place itself. The folks move slowly. And so there are going to be some definite issues if we do not address that. So using those traffic impact fees and really taking a look at the Transportation Development Management Plan, I think will be key to making this a safe project for the new citizens of Pinole. So the question that I had for you, David, in looking at the presentation, this is actually related to what Commissioner Curran brought up. Could you tell me how this project is harmoniously designed and integrated with the existing neighborhood, which is the Land Use and Economic Development Policy LU 4.1?
Well, in most cases, because of the landscape, because of the zoning of the property, it's a very high density residential zoning of the property. And so because of that, it's in itself, and this project, it meets all the density requirements of that. So it's kind of and in fact, this is really the only high density residential area along San Pablo. So there isn't any, I can't compare it to all of the other uses that are along that are commercial and business uses. However, it does fit in terms of the requirements of the residential requirement that it has as being residential. And so it's kind of a standalone on it, and it's taking most of the properties that are in the very high residential zone. I mean, it's taking probably 3 out of the 6 that are actually zoned that zone district. So in terms of harmonious and all of that, it is within the zone district of their property. So and there is some high density residential on the backside, even though it's not as dense. So that's kind of how we meet it in that regard and how it meets that finding. Is it similar to all the buildings along San Pablo? No, it's not, but it does. And that's because it's the only area of its kind along San Pablo. So where Saha kind of got mixed in, they were actually a commercial mixed use. They weren't a high density residential use. So they were in harmonious because they were able to give the look of a business on the bottom and residential on the top, where this is a all residential area on an all commercial street. And so we are comparing it to the residential areas that are surrounding it, not necessarily the commercial properties that are right next door and across the street and down the road. So that's kind of what it's like. It says its own animal there. So, I mean, if they were in the CMU zone, then there would have to be some additional design features that would have to give some of that look of that office or professional look building to be, quote, harmonious within the project. But so that's why I kind of made that finding, was because they're the majority of the high density area in the very high density area. And there is some high density in the back that's kind of 1960 style. It's kind of older looking in terms of style of architectural style. And so that's where the harmonious comes into play.
Well, they're not harmonious with those awful buildings in back. They're much better than those buildings. Okay. So kind of in line with that then, does it have a sensitive transition of scale and compatibility and form with the existing neighborhood? Housing element 2.1.
Yeah, I mean, it does and it doesn't. I mean, in terms of setbacks, I mean, you can go along San Paulo and all that area, and the commercial buildings have zero. There are a lot of buildings that have zero setback in the front and on the sides to their buildings, and so so it kind of fits in. It's this weird animal here we have in the middle of San Pablo that. I try to compare it to in terms of that regard for that particular finding and general plan is that along San Pablo there are tons of buildings that have that zero lot line in the front, where the buildings just front the onto San Pablo, whether it's a fence line, whether it's a building of that kind of nature. So that's where I came up with the more of that on that particular edge of the project. Okay. So I was kind of trying to fit this thing in of where because there are two totally different aspects of this San Pablo where it's at. So
yeah, okay, I appreciate that, but I mean there are a couple others here that really, as I'm looking through, seem a real stretch. And personally, I would prefer that we don't try and stretch something to fit it into a policy element that it doesn't really match. And I think part of this is our, again, what the state requirements are and what our requirements are. So I appreciated Commissioner Curran's suggestion that we, in our findings, put those things, that it doesn't necessarily match our general plan to the best of its intent, and we don't have to say that it does.
Right.
And
that's after, based on what Commissioner Curran said, I'm going to work with Justin on some language regarding some of these findings, and so that we have, because you're right, because some of these projects, and not just this project, there are other projects that could come in that has that same style, where it just, because of state law, because of the density bonuses, because of things that we can't control, we need to make sure that we understand that, and that we include that as part of the findings. So yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on that language, and you should see something different as more of these projects come forward.
Yeah, and just go with what we've got, and don't try and stretch things that don't match, just because we could. And so along with that, actually, it was Commissioner Benzuli was, I think, alluding to something that that we've talked about before, that Chair Banuelos has brought up, about having a map of what is San Pablo Avenue looking like, especially as we approach Old Town, and some of these different big.
And I'm working on that. That'll be coming to you probably in about the next 2 or 3 meetings, because we're working on the specific plan right now. And so the first corridor we're going to be talking about is San Pablo. So we'll be able to outline. I mean, I won't have models of the projects and stuff, but you'll see where project locations and significant projects are along the San Pablo corridor. So yeah, that's coming. It's just I couldn't do that you would have probably had it in this meeting, but because of this project and some of the other projects, there's no way that we could be able to do that. But it's coming. It's probably the next meeting.
Great.
The next meeting, or the second meeting in October. That'll be coming to you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was just a question that I had. Yeah. And let's see. So bike safety, we've got that. We addressed solar. Great that there's a new bus shelter right in front. And I think, actually, yeah, it's unfortunate that we had to kill a heritage tree. Yeah. And so just a question, Mr. Hannum, that tree, when I read the numbers, it was worth, the botanist valued that tree at more than $100,000. What is that value? What does that give us or tell us? Does it do anything, or does it just say that's what that tree is valued? Now we're going to cut it down, and that's
pretty much, it just tells us the value of the tree. We can't mitigate the value of the tree lost with the mitigation of putting something in like that. We don't have the ability to do that. So it's just telling us what the value of that tree is, and that we can't mitigate against that value. So all we can do is we can require them to plant trees similar in nature, so that in those years that maybe the trees will grow to be the size that those heritage trees were, and then we quote got them back in a way. But I can't mitigate the value of the trees.
That's unfortunate. I mean, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair Banuelos. Those are all my questions of staff for now. Thanks.
Okay, great. And all these questions have been really good. I mean, took away probably 2/3 of mine. So I'm glad that you all had come up with these kind of things. So my first question to you, David, is, and this is sort of like a semi-global city thing.
Yeah.
We don't have a LEED requirement for this type of building, right?
No.
And because I know some cities do have that, and I would think if you had to do that, there should be some kind of consideration on, if we make them do like a LEED Gold, they should be able to get something else. It's kind of like yet another consideration. I'd imagine it'd end up being. Now, but what will happen is, with the CalGreen, the green building code, there will be a lot of things that would attach itself to a building of this magnitude that will end up having to be in the project, especially when you talk about things like solar and how that's set up for that and all that. So I think there will be some of these things are going to be answered during the construction process that they're going to get because the code's going to tell them to do it.
Yeah, and not only that, but I know the city is taking a look at like some of the cities with their REACH codes and making things all electric and aspiring to, buildings of certain magnitude have to, have at least some LEED certification, whether it's silver or bronze. Most cities are going to silver, unless the applicant can always go to gold. But in most cases, cities want at least to silver. But we don't have anything of that nature. We don't have those codes.
The big cities always want gold or platinum. So
Yeah.
So that makes sense. What's the width of the sidewalk along that side of the San Pablo Avenue going in front of the project?
It's my understanding that it is. I could be corrected. But when I looked at it and looked at the plans, I want to say it's 5 feet, but it could be a little wider than that. So yeah, it's.
And where is our right of way relative to the back end of that sidewalk? Do you have a kind of a guess? I don't expect you to yank that
Our
one out
right
of
of
your
way,
head.
it's back at curb.
Okay, so the back end of the sidewalk is pretty much it then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because that would be some of the things that have come up in terms of seniors walking or driving or getting across the street and that kind of stuff. Some of that's going to be a function of how wide that sidewalk is.
Right.
And everyone has alluded one way or another on the traffic and the speed over time. I think you might have brought that up during the design review committee as well.
Right.
Because it seems a little scary to be a senior citizen, and I'm not that far off from that myself, to think about walking down, say I want to go downtown or go to the senior center, and I still feel like I can make it to walk, but with a 5-foot sidewalk, kind of psychologically and almost physically, you're a little close to the cars. And I don't expect this project to solve that, but this is something we're going to need to look at in the future as other projects start coming up, on this particular corridor, right. And maybe to some extent the Appian Way corridor as well, just because of the speed people drive at. I think during the middle of the virus and the freeways emptied out and people were flying down the freeway at 90, 100 miles an hour, and I don't think everyone's kind of gotten rid of that yet. It seems like everyone's driving faster.
Yeah.
And that's going to have an effect in terms of just the relationship between the people walking down the street with all those cars there. I remember years ago, we were talking about a project that was on there when I'm in the planning commission the first time. And it was on another apartment complex. And I remember Maureen Toms was really talking about what they used to call new urbanism.
Right.
Having like the walking stepped entrances right off the street. And the first thought was, well, you really have to hang on to your stairwell until you get blown off the sidewalk when somebody goes by.
Right.
And that's not something that's 100% the case, but I mean, if it feels that way, then no one's going to want to walk down to, anywhere. Right. So that's just I'm kind of jumping back and forth between questions and comments. I am, and actually, this is what I talked to with when talked to Mr. Wong when he said he couldn't come. This gets back to the colors, and I think it was kind of unfortunately used the word drab. I don't know if you'd want to actually kind of say it like that. Maybe it's just either simple or not, or some other kind of way to use it. But
not bright.
Yeah, not bright. And one of the things that was and is mentioned tonight as well. One of the things that came up during the design committee's time at this several months ago, and now is just how the color. Now, it's been improved in terms of the difference between what the exterior building finishes have and indentations and things like with the balconies, and just there's been some articulation in the facade, but I'm still kind of concerned about the color choices. And I'm not talking about adding more finish types. I'm thinking more just literally colors, paint colors.
Right.
So my question to you is, I wouldn't want to hold anything up on something like that in terms of like saying, oh, well, let's just talk about that for a few more months. I don't want to do that because we need to get this project going. But can we, as a condition of approval, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, have a instance where maybe they do take a look at colors but we allow staff to kind of make the call on that? Can that be done as a condition of approval if that is something that seems to latch on still? Because I know that was, like I said, Mr. Wong's concern about it. That certainly has been mine all along, and it was brought up tonight as well. So,
I guess my question would be: are you guys looking for more of are you looking more of the darker browns, the tans, because we could go colors. We could go a whole lot of different ways. I mean, most of the buildings along San Pablo have that either some type of brown, then the browns category, maybe some of the reds, like the darker reds, brick red, burgundy red, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'd want a little bit more parameters because if we want to apply, like in the downtown area, we have the standard of colors within the neighborhood and within the existing neighborhood or whatever. And is that something that if you guys wanted to add, that something around the neighborhood to be consistent with the neighborhood that it's in, or are you looking for particular schemes or color themes that would accent the building a little more? I mean,
I think I'm looking for something that would accent the building a little bit more.
Yeah.
Considering that a lot of the area is still sort of this, traditionally semi-industrial, commercial kind of area, I don't think really there's anything I would base anything off of in that area.
Okay.
I think this is the thing where this is going to be new context.
Okay.
This kind of talks back to what Anna was talking about. She's trying to make sure we can check all the boxes off on the various things that come up. But in this situation, and we've already started seeing this. It's going to be going over and over. Is we're dealing with new context in a lot of ways. We can kind of, if we're back up against some residential area, we can kind of, look at that and kind of say, well, there's some stuff in there that's kind of nice. Maybe we should make them do this. But even that is a completely different building type than what's going on in these multifamily units. It's almost, in order to do that, satisfy that particular thing, you almost have to come up with our own concept,
right,
and own context. Because there really isn't any. And that right now is going to be kind of piecemeal until we modify guidelines for multifamily units, which is, I know, what's going to be coming in the future. So I would almost turn it, if we go that way, I'd almost turn it to designers to figure that out and see what they would come up with. it doesn't have to be very bright. Obviously, it doesn't have to be something where you can see it from space or something. But but there should be more attention paid to the way the tones on the building kind of are working.
Okay.
And so that's my number one thing in that. And then I looked at the other thing I was talking about was talking to someone about I don't have a problem with the reduced parking and all that because, a lot of people may not be driving. And so the flip side of that is you got to make sure there's a way to pick them up and take them to places. And, there's already something set up with the senior center where they have a couple of vans where they go around, they pick people up from the various senior housing units. Whoever's in charge of this should probably look in to see if they can get in on that for starters, and or have some kind of way to do it themselves. So that kind of makes me lead to drop off, and that drop off, I saw it in the front there. It's a little innocuous, but the size seems to be there. So I'm not too, I'm not going to make any big comments about it. But those are the, since everyone's pretty much mentioned everything that I was thinking about, those are the two things that I was, still wanted to make a comment on. And we'll just kind of see how it goes tonight, if there's a real interest in that or not, or if there isn't, that's fine. If there is, then we can, I don't want to upset the apple cart on something like that. I mean, that's something that could be, figured at the staff level, I think. So, so that's pretty much the extent of my comments for now. I mean, I'll have more comments later probably too. But now I think I'd like to see if there's the presentation from the applicant. You said they had one.
Okay, we'll probably have to open the public hearing first.
Oh, you want to do that first? Okay. All right, then let me do my virtual gavel and open the public hearing. Okay. And do we want to start with the applicant, or do we want to see if there's anyone that wants to speak to this?
We should start with the applicant.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say we can start with the applicant.
Okay, so let's do that then. That's kind of what I wanted to do anyway. So.
Okay, good. All right. We got to let him in. So, Gina, are you there?
Dave, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, Jenny. Okay, good. Okay.
And I'm here as well.
Go first, and then Jenna will go.
Okay, Jenna. Okay, great. Okay. The floor is all yours.
Okay, thanks. Can you see me? I can't see my own.
Yeah, we can just see your head.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Right there. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. So thanks, Dave. I should probably say thanks, Mr. Hannum, but we've had a lot of screen time and calls over the last week. We're definitely on a personal basis, but thanks for that. I'm Jenny Jackman. I'm with MRK Partners, and we are the developers on the Vista Woods Senior Apartments project. And we are super excited to finally be at this point presenting to you. And I do need to shout out the team at the city. They've been great. Our key contacts have been really great. They've been responsive. They've provided excellent guidance, and we really appreciate that. So I just wanted to recognize them before we go on. I don't see our slides up. Can we get those up? Okay,
there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Next slide. This is the team. We have a terrific team. Relativity has just a ton of breadth and depth in the affordable world. So we are thrilled to have them as partners and designers on this project. Agency Artifact is the landscape architect, and you'll see more of their work as the architect presents in just a few minutes. And Kalichi Design Group is our Bay Area civil engineer. Again, great direction from them. Lucky to have them on our team. Our general contractor partner is Community Investment Builders. They're keeping us on track budget-wise and giving us some market insights, making sure we're going to be able to actually build this project. We have the lender, California Housing Finance Agency, and the credit agency, CTCAT, California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. Next slide. Just a little bit about MRK. We are a privately held company, and we have a number of properties in our portfolio, and it's pretty much bi-coastal. We have properties in California, a significant number in Florida, a few in the DC area. And the company was founded in 2015, and we're currently owning and operating about 4,300 units. And to date, we've completed 16 projects. And for more information, you can go to the mrkpartners.com website if you want to know a little bit more about us. Next slide. Dave pointed this out. This is showing, you can see a little bit more clarity, the boundaries of the property with the streets that bound it. And again, frontage on San Pablo, the northernmost boundary is Encina, the westernmost is Madrone, and the address again is 600 Roble. Next slide. And a few key high-level statistics about the property. Again, just reminding you, 179 apartments, seniors 62 and older. There will be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom and 2, weighted toward the 1-bedroom units. Plenty of indoor and outdoor common area and amenities, really targeted at that senior population. We talked about bike storage, we talked about parking. The time frame is currently looking to be start probably February 2022, and we'll go through about March of 2024. And I'll let Jenna address the colors. She can really contextualize where the designers came up with those colors. And the balcony question, we do have regulations at our other projects with balconies, so we have ways to address that as well. Next slide. We are very excited, and maybe this is the most important thing about the Vista Woods project are the community benefits, not the least of which is really enhancing this key commercial corridor of San Pablo. And we're also excited about the fact that they are 100% affordable units serving low and middle income seniors. And the quality is there. They're really fine architectural finishes, and the building typology, and the designers have done a terrific job with the structure, et cetera. This is a transit-oriented infill project with enhanced site improvements along this major bus corridor. And we talked again about the different kinds of bicycle parking. This project does help fulfill city and state housing production targets. And there's a range of incomes to be accommodated at this property, the lower end of which is $30,000, the higher end $80,000. And one thing we think will likely happen is this will allow some empty nesters that are currently living in the area that are aging and they want to stay in the area. They love it. They are familiar with it and comfortable there, and they could possibly be attracted to these apartments and then open up, housing for families to move in, et cetera. And again, focusing on that higher density development will bring, people to this point, and for both existing and future amenities and services along San Pablo. Next slide. One of MRK's mantras is socially responsible development, and we get excited about green initiatives. And we always place energy efficient appliances in our units with energy efficient and water efficient fixtures and mechanical systems. Here you can see an image with the solar array. We're really maxing out the PV panels on top of the roof. And by the way, we can talk about this in a little bit more detail. We are looking at batteries. They're super expensive, but as backup to the solar, we will have an emergency generator on site. And this solar, as designed right now, will take care of probably 30 to 40% of usage at the property. We have put a significant amount of focus, I think. Chair Benuelos was talking about the loading zone, and we'll look at that a little bit more, and the architect will speak a little bit more to that too, but we put a lot of focus into that, really kind of packing the design with options for this particular population. And we've tried to be very thoughtful about the transportation and transit orientation of the site, and you're looking at being proactive with the goal of reducing demand for autos and then giving options for transportation. Next slide. So here we can focus a little bit more on those details. Again, we have 88 on-site parking stalls, a portion of which will be in a covered garage, and we have electrical vehicle charging stations, but also providing a car that's dedicated to hourly rentals that will be electrical, will be at one of the electrical charging stations. And we will also have, again, we talked about the infrastructure there to possibly electrify a number or eventually all of the other parking stalls. And MRK has really looked at statistics regarding seniors and autos, but MRK also has extensive experience operating properties that are dedicated to seniors. And so we know that this demographic is likely, much less likely to have cars. So again, we're designing with that sensitivity, but then also providing options. So we've also looked at a number of other housing projects in the area constructed with similar ratios, and those are working. Those are really working. Let's see here. Oh, one more thing I just wanted to say. So the bicycle park, a couple different kinds. We have the new bus shelter. We have the ride share. We have the electrical charging, prospective hourly rentals, and all of those things come together right in immediate adjacency to the main entrance of the building. Next slide. We're in the planning stages now of programs that will be well suited to the residents of this property, and it'll be comprehensive in nature. And some of the things that MRK has done at other senior properties that have worked really well are, this large activity room with a community kitchen and prep area and service area, a designated fitness area, and a rec room that combines uses. It's multi-use. There's computers in there, conversation areas, etc. Some AV. There's a dedicated laundry area on this floor as well, but note that there's also hookups in the units. And then, as you know, like Amazon delivery and package delivery is such a big thing, and it's so we designed with that in mind. You'll see the lockers there in the lobby and mailroom area that's combined, so there's a place for people to rub shoulders and visit and pick up their packages, and it's a part of the design. It's not off in the corner. So we really enjoy that, and I think that they will enjoy that as well. We have a number of lounges and seating areas throughout the building, some smaller, some more intimate. And then some of the resident services that have been successful at some of our other senior properties are adult education classes, computer lab classes, health and wellness, financial planning, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. And just a little bit more about the health and wellness focus, which becomes obviously more important with seniors. We have a number of services at other properties that are, again, very popular, very well received. Some of those are things like on-site health screening, flu shots, hearing tests, classes, visitors, speakers, and gardening is always a really popular activity at some of the other MRK properties. And with that, I will turn over the time and the slides to architect Jenna.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Nguyen. I'm the studio director with Relativity Architects. And I'd just like to echo Jenny's statements. We're very excited about this project. We've really had a wonderful time working with Dave and the whole team at Pinole for this. So just to give you a little intro into us, Relativity Architects, we were founded in 2013. The majority of our work is in affordable housing. We've built over 5,500 units, both new construction and rehabilitation. So we're very familiar with all the unique codes and funding that is tied to affordable housing, which has such a big play, especially on how the design and the layout of the program comes together. We love doing this. We love affordable housing. We love to be able to design for the occupants of the building, and that's something that we take a lot of pride and passion in doing. And so hopefully that comes through in what we've produced for this community. Next slide, please. And so in the site plan, I won't go into too much detail. Dave did a wonderful job covering all the parameters of the project, but I'll fill in a little bit of the design intent and some concepts that came up as well in the conversations. So as you can see on the site plan, the building really follows the property lines. The property zigzags and the building zigzags with it. We really tried to stay true to the topography and the site itself. So the building actually steps down. So there's 4 different elevations. As the site slopes to the east, the building steps down with it. So you can see kind of some lines in the roof plan where there's breaks, and each wing is lower than the previous one to the west. And that just really helps to kind of ground it into the hillsides of this neighborhood. And in acknowledging the major San Pablo corridor, Dave mentioned this, but all of the amenities that Jenny just mentioned and the main entry and lobby and the bus shelter and everything are really oriented on the southern facade towards San Pablo. That was important to us. I know that's part of the intention of the specific plan, but also for us that there's a main frontage on San Pablo that not only does the building, but the community have this identity of visible access and a really active front to sort of engage with the city and with the San Pablo corridor. Next slide, please. The landscape as well is very inspired by the area. What we attempted to do was reflect the Bay Area nature. California has that sort of iconic landscape, and in the outdoor areas, what we've designed is these kind of different gardens. So the Redwood Grove is at the front entry. There's a sycamore walk, an oak garden, a fern hillside, a mini farm. And I'll show a couple of examples of those. Next slide, please. So this is the sycamore walk, and you'll see the larger green trees on the plan are sycamores, and so they're very formally laid out and framing this entry. This is the area kind of facing east and towards San Pablo below the plan that's shown. There's a walkway and exercise area. There's built-in seating benches. So it becomes a really nice kind of formal garden. Invite the seniors to walk along the path, as well as reflect the California sycamore tree, which is pretty iconic. Next slide, please. And this is the main entry. We're very excited about this one, and Jenny mentioned it as well. And I think you can see in this plan a little better the way the loading zones, the bus stop, and everything comes together. So you'll see that we have seating areas for the residents or their guests or their family that might be meeting them to pick them up. The loading zone you'll see there is large enough for vans, for ride shares, for anyone that's picking up. And it was important for us to place that in close proximity to the front door. We didn't want to make the seniors walk a very far distance to be able to get to their rides. It provides good access between the bus shelter, which is right there, and the bike racks that could serve people from the community, either family coming to visit, parking their bikes there, people getting on the bus, have a place to put their bike as well. And a very kind of sheltered bus area amongst the Redwood Grove there. Next slide, please. So further on the color palettes, and I know that came up a few times, so I'll do my best to address some of those comments as well. We took our inspiration from the area, and I mentioned California's kind of iconic landscape. The Bay Area itself has those golden brown hills. You have the blue of the bay, the green of the oak trees. It's really just a beautiful natural palette, and that was what instigated our design inspiration for the colors of the facade. Next slide, please. So what we were aiming for is something that is soft and warm with texture and color, but also something that wasn't too contrasting. We wanted to make sure that it felt comfortable as a home for the residents, that it had a residential feel, not a commercial feel. And at the same time, it had brightness and pops of color. So on the left of the screen, you'll see our accent colors, and those actually occur in every single balcony. So each balcony has a partition wall, and each partition wall is a different color. So it oscillates between the blue, the yellow, the green, and the sort of rusty red. And so there's quite a bit of color there on the balconies. The balconies also have a golden painted railing on a kind of warm tan paint color that contrasts against a softer off-white, which is the main kind of neutral base of the whole building. And then the other main element that maybe doesn't come through quite as strong in the image, but you can see on the upper right, that wood-like material that occurs and wraps every community space. So on the ground floor, where we have our dining room and our game room and the main lobby entry and these open balconies above it, that's all actually wrapped in this wood like panel. It's a metal panel, but it has a high color variation. So from a distance, you really get that warmth of wood. And that occurs on all facades. So where we have stairwells or other community spaces, we accent the more neutral stucco with this really warm wood material. And so that kind of all comes together to be a building that we're pretty excited about, of achieving a nice balance between comfort and home and softness and warmth and a bit of brightness and accents. Our windows also are painted on the frame. You'll see in the middle that sort of tan color that comes around the window frames, and that's going to help pop. We didn't want to have just white window frames that looked too commercial. We really wanted to avoid that. Next slide, please. And so to talk about the programming a little bit, which is something we like to really discuss, is the quality of the units. And that's really important to us because this is where the seniors live. And so even though it's not necessarily details that are governed in every planning code, for us, it's a really important feature. So the balconies are very large, larger than usual for affordable housing. And then the units themselves have built-in shelving, extra storage closets. They have outlets for washers and dryers, as Jenny mentioned. And the kitchens have full electric ranges with ovens and dishwashers. And so there's a lot of amenity within the unit itself. And for us, making sure the unit is really functional is important. All units are adaptable if they're not already fully accessible. And so it really meets the needs of a senior population. All the appliances are electric, which addresses senior safety and not having gas appliances that could be left on. It also addresses sustainability of kind of getting off of natural gas dependency. We have plenty of built-in lighting within the units. So we've really thought through a lot of details in here that maybe aren't as apparent on plan, but we wanted to make sure to point them out, that the quality of life is definitely something that is within this project. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. So, David, have we had any members of the public that want to speak to this?
No, I don't have any. On my emails.
Okay. Well, we've been looking at this for a while, so it's pretty safe to say that we go ahead and close the public hearing and go on to questions and comments from the commission. So I'll go ahead and bang my virtual gavel and we'll do that. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant as we get started in our comments? And I'll start with Anne this time.
Great, thank you. Actually, I don't have very many questions. I actually, Gina, thank you very much for expressing a little bit more about the color. I think that the color, like talking about the balconies, that doesn't come through in the plans that we received. So you don't see, that variation, which, so your presentation really helped to highlight that. So I appreciated that. A question for you, just kind of out of curiosity. Looking at the shadow study, why is that done on the solstice, the shortest day of the year?
That I don't know. I don't. I think that's just,
not every city does it on the solstice.
Yeah, our environmental consultant's online, so Olivia, if you're out there, if you can answer that question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to weigh in. Olivia Urban, environmental consultant with M Group. It is done typically to identify the period of time that it would be the least amount of sunshine. So that's the solstice, to identify the greatest impact, because on every other day of the year, the sun shines longer. And so you look at the shortest day to assess the worst case.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of what I thought, but I was surprised. I'd never seen that before. So thank you, Olivia, for answering that. Also, question. This would be having to do with the programming, the Transportation Development Management Plan. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if we could see that. Obviously some of our questions from many of us were about the safety of, seniors in a bike ped environment in a place that is not bike friendly. We're working on that, for Pinole, but yeah. So is it possible to see that Transportation Development Management Plan?
Yeah, I think once developed, I can bring it to the commission on just comments from the commission and those types of things. I can bring it to the commission to take a look at.
That'd be great. Thank you. Actually, I think you guys have done a really fabulous job with developing a very interesting set of land, a bit of land, and how you've moved into that. So I really appreciate that, and that you were responsive to the design review. So thank you, Mr. Hannum, for pushing that along, and thank you, Jenny and Gina and the rest of your group for working with that. So I actually don't have any other questions, so we can move on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Adam?
I just have a couple quick comments or quick questions. I take it, is this an open corridor, or is this like more of an interior closed corridor between the units? It looks like it's closed, but I wasn't sure.
It's enclosed. It's an indoor.
It's enclosed. Okay. And then I take it all the windows on the facade are all operable windows, or at least a portion of the window is actually operable?
Yes, all the windows in units are operable. Along the corridor, we actually have quite a few windows to bring natural light into the interior corridor, and those are fixed windows.
Okay. That's what lead to my second question was, did you look at further options to add more glazing to bring more natural light into the units? Because they're kind of shotgun style as far as more, deeper than kind of wide. Or if there's any opportunity to add more exterior windows to bring more natural light in, or are you just kind of limited by, room size and HVAC requirements?
We took every advantage for that. So we have large windows in the bedrooms going to the exterior, and in the living rooms that open to the balconies, the door is a fully glazed door with a light around it. So there's extra width there as well, from floor to door height of glazing. And then in the corridors, we put windows everywhere that we could design a break in the corridor. We added a window.
Okay. And then last question is, I'm kind of looking at some of the other MRK projects that are done kind of in the area. And I was curious if you considered using any of the design elements that we're seeing in some of the other, like the Claremont Village and some of the Cypress Pines projects that had a little more articulation, a little more design features around the windows and the glazing. These are kind of blocky, I guess, for lack of a better term, or they lack a little interest. I was wondering if any of the other projects could be design elements be brought in, or you look at some of the other past projects that MRK has done in the area.
I'll answer from the architectural standpoint, and Jenny, if you want to jump in. It's partly a cost-driven decision, in the sense that with 179 units and really trying to maximize the amount of natural light getting into the unit to benefit the resident, we wanted to choose our accents wisely. And so that wood-like metal panel that is around the community rooms and everything, we really pushed the presence of that. We pushed the presence of the balconies with the railings and the different colors on the partition walls and on the balcony walls. So we focused our accents in those areas, allowing us to kind of get the most bang for our buck, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And actually, that kind of leads me to that other question I have on the metal panels, that kind of that faux wood look. Is that like a painted metal panel, or is it a metal panel that's got like a skin on it, or what is that? And what is the life expectancy, and how will that look like in 5 years, 10 years, as you know, the sun kind of beats down on it?
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, it's baked in with the metal. So I don't have the exact lifespan in front of me. I could send that to Dave to pass on later. But it's not just a paint that will chip or peel. It's actually a part of that panel. And so it will last for a very long time.
Okay. That was all my questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Raphael?
So some of the things I'm going to want to say are going to shift more into comments, so I'll hold off on them. But Adam's question just now brought up something in my mind. You mentioned that all of the windows were openable, but I seem to recall there being something about special windows being put in on the areas facing San Pablo Avenue, and special HVACs being put in order to mitigate the effects of the diesel pollution and whatnot from all the cars that go by on San Pablo. So how do the windows interact with that? Is it just people can open the windows if they're willing to deal with the extra pollution, or how does that work?
So the windows, they're required to be operable for safety and for ventilation. So they meet certain egress requirements. If in the unfortunate situation there's a fire and a senior needs to get rescued out of their bedroom, they can get rescued through the window. So there are requirements for operability and for the size of the operable portions of the window. And so we are meeting those code requirements. The HVAC code also requires MERV 13 filters. I believe that's what you might be referencing from the conditions. And that's a very high rated filter for particulates. And so that meets the requirements facing San Pablo, where there's higher vehicular traffic. And it would just be up to the residents if they want to open their windows or not.
I guess I wondered if there could be some way, like maybe a little tag next to the windows or something saying, hey, we have these nice, really effective particulate filters, and they aren't going to do anything if you have the windows open.
You could have that tag and it would not make any difference.
Yeah.
I guess not. It seems like your average occupant of the unit might not be aware that the HVAC provides more protection than having the window open. When they might think, oh, it's just natural air, it'll be fine. And they open the window and then they're not getting the benefit of the fancy HVAC that the conditions require we install in the first place.
Actually, it's a good question. We do have those kinds of issues in different climates, with, hey, it's better to keep your windows closed for a variety of reasons. So I'm sure that we'll have, resident education ongoing at this property like we do others. It's actually a really good point.
Okay, yeah, as long as people at least are aware that they're making that choice, because I think by default they might not be. And I think that's my only question for right now.
Okay, thank you. David?
I actually have no questions for the applicant. I think it's a great presentation and pretty much got an idea what's going on.
Okay. Frankie?
Thank you, Jenna, for your time, and Jenny for joining us tonight. The only question I have for you is regarding the HVAC systems. So I'm confident you in the team have put together really good heating units, but when we say HVAC, are they also going to be air conditioned units for the seniors?
Yes, there's heating and cooling.
Excellent. It's just our climate is changing here, and we've had a number of days in the last year well over 90 degrees. So if you've taken that into consideration, that completes the last question I would have. Or actually, there's the other question I had was around the entryway, the parking, and the shuttle areas. If there's any way possible to increase the seating as much as possible and then cover it. We don't really have bad weather here in Pinole, but we do get some rain. And so as folks The example being is WestCat, which is our local transportation shuttle that service for our seniors here. They'll usually wait for somebody 10 minutes, but if it just happens to be a cold day and they're inside the doors and maybe don't have a covered area to stand and wait for the shuttle, they may actually miss their shuttle connection. So if there's any way that we could see if there's a way of adjusting the design to make it a little bit more friendly for those days when we have inclement weather, I would really appreciate it. And I think the seniors would appreciate that as well. So not a big ask, but if there's anything you can do, is there a possibility, do you think, of changing that a little in the front?
We do actually have a large awning over the main doorway on the front entry. And so there is ample room for several people to gather out there if they're waiting for WestCat or a friend or someone to pick them up.
Okay, perfect. I couldn't exactly see. So if you've already taken that into consideration and handled that for us, excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay.
Turning it over to you, Tim.
Okay. Did I get everybody? I was writing lots of notes, so everybody's talked. I appreciate your presentation, and I like how you showed the rooms, because while we don't, of course, say anything about the interior, I think it's important to see how the rooms were being laid out, because the conglomeration of them, the various types and how they connect together, also end up generating the building shape in a lot of ways. And this, to me, this is not that easy a site. It has that big drop, and you have to zigzag, and there are several things there that don't make this a slam dunk project. But I think the way that you guys laid it out and how you came up with things was really very good. And it's nice to see that. And since we're all sort of new to this type of project in Pinole, we haven't had a whole lot of apartment buildings, and you probably have seen that, as you've gone around town. Where this is definitely a jump in what a lot of people see, especially even when you compare it to some of the other multifamily units that are going on all over the Bay Area. A lot of them are very large. A lot of sometimes I feel like it's like we're playing dominoes or pushing little things back and forth to make an edge, and they wrap a facade around it and hope for the best. But this one really has a lot of thought into it. I like when you were talking about the rooms I was looking at, I said, oh yeah, these are really nice units. And so that, I like the project already, but I that really kind of added more to me to that. And your explanation of the landscaped areas, and even how you could wait in the rain was very good. And I especially liked how you showed your intention in terms of the colors. That was far better than what was being shown. The rendering just didn't pull it off, to be quite honest. And which generated a lot of questions, early on, and even up to a couple of days ago when our missing planning commissioner called me and he said he couldn't come, but he hear his comments. It was all about the colors. So I like the color palette. That's in my mind. If I said, well, you guys got to go work on the palette, that's what I would have hopefully would have expected. So you've kind of already, beat us to the punch, as it were, in terms of how that's turning out. So now your balconies, the guardrails are solid, right?
It's a stucco covered wall with a railing on top.
Okay, so there was a question earlier about having some kind of rule to not store all your stuff out there. So part of that response to that is, well, you have solid guardrails, and you may not see a lot of that stuff out there. So the intensity of that kind of thing may be not as much, but as long as people aren't having super tall things out there, I guess that would be something to think about. We've all seen people with their giant cat climbers out on their balconies and things like that. So, but overall, I really think this is a very successful project, and I'm glad that we've, the process probably seemed really long to you all and all that, especially these days with COVID, everything's taken 10 times long to get through any given city. But I think a lot of the comments that we made early on, it seems to me that you've responded to them, thought about them and saw how you can do things to mitigate. And, I think this is going to be a very nice project for the people that are going to end up living there. I think this looks like somewhere where people really could thrive and really enjoy their lives. So I'm really excited as well to see this going on. And I like the overall, height and bulk. It's not too tall, it's not too short. It fits in with the area. I've seen so many super high rise. I mean, we wouldn't have anything like that here, I wouldn't think. But the way the state's kind of mandating things, it's kind of anything goes. And I'm sure people are going to try that in some places where they shouldn't. But this really fits the area in terms of just the size it takes up and how tall you see it and things like that. It doesn't adversely stick out. I think it fits in very nicely, and I think it's a nice kind of beginning. Like we were saying earlier, this is traditionally a very industrial commercial area, so to have something of this high density in this area it's a little bit unusual for us, and it's a nice way to start. I can see this inspiring other projects that we may have coming along in the future that we haven't seen yet. So I'm really glad how this has turned out. And I don't have the concerns that I had coming into the meeting about the colors anymore, like I mentioned. So I thank you for all your efforts, and look forward to seeing this, getting going, as sure you are too. So that's all the extent of my my comments. So let's see, I guess we've come to the end. And does anyone have anything else they want to say before we look for someone to make a motion? Or are we ready to go on this?
I'd like to say thank you for all the comments. They're really, really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think because this is we're just starting out on this kind of thing in terms of this building type. And so everyone's looking at everything very, very carefully. And so far, everything we've seen that's coming is all very different. So we're getting quite a spectrum. So does anyone have any other final words or anything, or are we ready for a motion?
Well, I have a couple of quick ones that it sounds like we're now out of the public hearing and into the comments. I just kind of want to add some real quick ideas to the resolution, if I may, that reflect my earlier comments. The first one, looking at the attachment A, which is the conditions of approval. On the second page of that, where it says findings, it says the proposed project is consistent with the objectives of the general plan and complies with applicable zoning regulations, blah, blah, blah. I was wondering if we could maybe put in the phraseology that I talked about earlier about the state law. And I was just thinking about changing it to say the proposed project is consistent with the objectives of state law and of the general plan and complies with the applicable so on and so forth. So we can kind of emphasize that, that's the state law is really driving a lot of the parameters of this approval. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that. Yay or nay, or
I don't see any problem with. I think it's important to recognize that, like you're saying, I don't have. I think that's fine. I think it's a good point, especially with when we have the public who isn't totally up on all these things and they don't know why things are going a certain way, and I think it's important to have that in there. And you mentioned that earlier too. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's a good idea.
I'd agree. It provides context for what we're doing and the guidelines we're operating within.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So okay with you, Alex? Okay.
Yes.
And,
okay.
And the other comment is I'd like to add a condition of approval dealing with the traffic study. And Raphael, I think that that number 15 was deliberately left empty for my change. And I was just thinking about making number 15. It's not quite in the right place, but hey, we got an open thing there. And I was just thinking that number 15 could read, the city Pinole shall conduct a traffic study to determine if a traffic signal shall be needed at the San Pablo Avenue Roble intersection, just so that we be a little bit proactive in getting a traffic study.
Well, Commissioner, I might suggest the conditions of approval are regarding the project. So, if the city is to conduct the traffic study, which I think is appropriate, and install that's something for the city council to direct.
Okay.
Because they have no control. The applicant has no control over whether that occurs or not.
No, but now we got a blank condition of approval that I don't know how to fill. But
don't worry about it, Dave. Don't worry about it.
But you don't want to attach to the project really, but
that's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have. But I'm seeing changes in Pinole that I would have never envisioned 5 years ago. With the fact that the state is stepping up and kind of changing the game with affordable housing, which is really necessary. I think this is going to definitely change Pinole, especially with all the other projects coming in. And I just hope that the citizens of Pinole are prepared for what's happening. Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone have any other last words they want to express regarding this?
I have several comments, if I can.
Sure.
So, first off, just briefly hopping back to colors, if we go back to the developer background slide, I took a picture of it, but it'd probably be easier to just go back physically within the slides to the relevant point. There were a couple of examples of different color schemes that they use. And I thought that the upper right one in particular was interesting in contrast of a chosen design scheme, because you see more of a use of orange as the predominant color rather than more of the gray color. So it's a overall brighter effect. And if you take a look at the rendering of the designs, I can see how the accent sort of walls on the balconies provide a bit of pop from the perspective of inside the units. But viewing it from the street, I'm not sure how much of an effect the accent walls on the balconies are going to have. I think the predominant thing people are going to see is the wood paneling, which is fine. And then you've got this sort of white out edges, and then you've got this gray brown color, I guess, for the balconies and some of the edges. And I think that's the area where I have an issue, because that sort of creates I recognize that it's comforting. It definitely tends towards more of a harmonious effect overall. I just worried that it might go a bit too far in that direction.
You want a little more pop, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I'm personally always biased a bit in that direction, but I'm trying to leave my personal biases out of this.
Right. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the same picture I thought about after we saw that slide too. The one with the orange and the kind of the reddish brown wood. But then as it went on, it realized that they do have some of that reddish brown color in the front. It just didn't kind of show up in the rendering as much as it did in their explanation of the colors. So I
definitely think that the image they had in their presentation was better than the renderings in terms of showing how the colors fit together. I still think that, you know, the overall balance of the balconies compared to everywhere else and sort of the color similarity of the balconies to the other colors.
It might be worth going back to just the very end rendering.
Yeah, it might be worth going back to that particular slide.
Because the dividing walls of the balconies are perpendicular to the road, you know how you see signage a lot better when it's perpendicular to the road, especially as you're passing by? So those dividing walls are perpendicular, and that's where those different pops of color are. And I think as you're moving down the road, you'll really get a dynamic quality to those colors and a bit of movement which will add to the actual color itself, you know. So
yeah, I think my issue definitely isn't with the dividing walls. I like them as accents. My issue is more with the color of the balcony itself, I think. Because everything else I can see, you know, how it works together. You've got the wood and the white color for sort of a, you know, mid-century design thing. But then the sort of brownish gray of the balconies, it tilts it more towards, I don't want to quite say 1960s style architecture, but it makes it look more homogeneous, over and above warm, because sort of the contrast between the wood paneling and the white, I definitely get the sense of warmth there, and likewise at the bottom level where you've got the accents of the darker brown next to the wood paneling. That's good. Maybe if you had like the balconies be a darker brown like you have for the trim on the sort of entryway area there, it might work better. It's just that sort of brown gray color, I think, just doesn't work well with the other colors you have for the rest of the building. But that's my opinion, and you know, if the rest of the commission disagrees, then you know, it's not like this is a horrendous thing or anything like that. It's definitely better than the renders that were in the packet. It's just I think that it would maybe be better if the color of the balconies was a different color. And then my other comments are with regards to what we're going to be putting in the packet, because I noted that, let's see if I can find the particular thing.
While he's doing that, can you go to the slide with the little circles of color, you know, their color scheme? Yeah, there you go. So the one in the upper right hand corner, the wood finish, and that's wood. Is that the wood on the metal panels?
Yes.
Is that like some kind of Trespa panel or something like that?
It's a metal panel, but it has that finish, and it has a high variation in it so that it really mimics wood.
Yeah, because I know when I've seen Trespa panels as an example, the wood really, the color really pops out at you. And even in your example here, pointing, you know, as it's pointing to the rendering, that color, it's actually going to look, I think it's going to have some of the pop that Raphael's looking for in terms of that part. It's not as, I don't think it's as homogeneous as he's seeing it. I think it's going to be actually much, you know, the color in your picture there of the actual color is a lot more intense than in the rendering. So
it is.
It's going to.
I agree.
And I think that's going to look really good. Those metal panels with the imprinted wood on it, those always look pretty good. Use those lots of times over and over, and you know, some are more expensive than others and that kind of thing, but they always seem to look good and they last. You know, the color in it lasts a long time.
Yes, so, and this is a Trespa panel. It is
Trespa. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's even better because they're you know, they do very high quality panels, and actually I think to have something like that in a, you know, in this is actually kind of a nice treat in terms of what that's really going to look like. So maybe that'll help you out there, Raphael. It's really going to look like the one in the corner, so it'll be a little more, it's going to have more pop in your thinking, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Right. I mean, like I said, I get that what they're showing here definitely has a lot more pop to it than the images that are in the packet. My problem isn't with the wood panels or with the white or with really most of the shades here. My problem is with the sort of brown gray shade that's next to the yellow shade over there. You can see it in the top right balcony wall too, how it's sort of it's not jarring, but it's it feels off compared to the other colors that are used in that palette.
I can kind of see what you mean. I think when you see those Trespa panels, you're going to forget all about that, though.
I mean, I've got no objection to the panels. Like I've said, my objection is just to the color of the balconies themselves.
Yeah.
And then moving on from this, though, because I think we've discussed it about as far as we're going to at this point, with regards to the sustainability element, there was mentioned policy SE 4.3, promote require renewable energy generation and cogeneration where feasible and appropriate. Policy SE 4.5, Pinole will continue to support and require where appropriate the development of solar energy. Policy SE 5.3, prior to reuse, former commercial and industrial sites will be cleaned up according to relevant regulations. And Policy SE 8.7, work to improve Pinole's pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure to meet the needs of all pedestrians and bicyclists. But I think several of the elements of this project really tie into core parts of the sustainability element. So I know that we're already discussing SE 8.7, and I think SE 8.7.3, the action to require secure bicycle parking is really strongly here. I think that policy SE 7.4 isn't mentioned, and I think it should be. It says in order to reduce vehicle miles traveled and traffic congestion, new development within 1,000 feet of an existing or planned transit shops should be designed to encourage the use of public transit and minimize the dependence on the automobile through the application of site design guidelines. I think that's really a thing this project does really well with its focus on bicycles, with its sort of orientation around the bus stop, with having lower levels of car parking, all those factors. I think that's a policy we want to highlight. Let's see. And SE 3.4, reduce greenhouse gas emissions by reducing vehicle miles traveled and by increasing or encouraging the use of alternative fuels and transportation policies. I think the overall electrical setup with regards to having all of the parking stalls be wireable for electric and having some electric charging stations built in by default. And SE 3.4.5, new developments incorporate both local and regional transit measures in the project design. And SE 3.4.6, priority to projects that result in reduction of vehicle miles traveled per capita while maintaining sustainability and economic viability. And SE 3.4.7, the city will encourage the growth and enhancement of an interconnected transportation system that allows a shift in travel from private passenger vehicles to alternative modes, including public transit, ride sharing, bicycling, and walking. I think that's a really major strength of this project. And I think that's something that should be highlighted in the report on it. Let's see.
So it's obvious we're going to be putting the squeeze on Westcat to increase the number of lines and how quickly they show up.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a factor.
And the reason they haven't before is because they didn't need them. Now we need them. So so it makes sense. I mean that's if they're not talking about that, I would be really surprised already. Knowing, based on being on that board, I would be really surprised that they weren't talking about this stuff already.
So we've also got SE 7.1, and that's sort of built in as part of our conditions of approval. The whole how construction is done. It's basically copied and pasted, effectively speaking, into there. So I think we could probably note that as one of the sustainability elements that's in effect, because, you know, we literally have the action as part of our conditions of approval. Let's see. SE 8.2 encourage development of a planning and zoning strategy to absorb all new growth of a city in areas that achieves transit supportive densities through strategic development controls. And policy SE 8.3 encourage housing opportunities for all income levels to ensure that workers of Pinole can live in the city and reduce the need for outbound commuting for employment. Less so the case because it's primarily a senior focused population, but these days retirement is getting later and later in people's lives. SE 8.6 establish parking policies and requirements that capture the true cost of private vehicle use and support alternative modes of transportation. And then action SE 8.6.2 consider reducing minimum parking requirements for new development, and SE 8.6.3 continue to encourage shared parking programs and mixed use and transit oriented development. And SE 8.6.5 requirement new and fully renovated commercial and retail development provide preferential parking for electric vehicles and vehicles using alternative fuels. And we've already got 8.7 addressed as part of the sustainability element, but I think that 8.7.1 might very well be a tie-in for the proposed traffic study and installation of lights. And I agree that at least having a hawk system or something to mitigate car speeds going through there will be important with a large senior population using that crosswalk at the very least, because I know a new stoplight would probably cost on the order of $1 million based on estimates I've heard in the past, though I don't have obviously the exact numbers. Let's see if there were any.
Well, it depends. Yeah, I mean, we really had a good, you know, with this, just was one project alone, we really had a good start on something. I could tell you, we never really were sure we were going to get any of that kind of stuff when that was first coming out.
Yeah,
and we dealt with that.
I just think that, you know, in our staff report and maybe even in our resolution, I think we should go out of our way to highlight the many ways in which this project successfully implements the city's sustainability goals, because the city has a great sustainability policy, but a lot of the elements in it just haven't been implemented just due to timing, due to focus on the city, due to whatnot. So I think when we do manage to implement those elements, when we do have a project that implements a lot of the core elements of the sustainability policy, but I think it's worth celebrating that and highlighting that, because the sustainability element is really, I would argue, at the core of the general plan, because sustainability impacts are going to have a huge impact on how Pinole is in the future: greenhouse gas emissions, global warming, climate change, overall temperature changes in the city, as was mentioned earlier, with the need for increased air conditioning, overall climate effects, increased storms, increased droughts, leading to, you know, water impacts for the project as a whole. All those things. I think sustainability really needs to be at the core of what we consider as a commission with regards to projects, especially major projects like this. And I think this project really does a great job of meeting the demands of the sustainability element and working towards building a more sustainable city in terms of its density, in terms of how it integrates with transit, in terms of all of it. So I think we should try and highlight that as it goes to the city council, so the public more broadly and the council as well can see how the sustainability element works in practice in this particular case.
Yeah, this is something we could definitely, you know, add to, you know, staff reports on this kind of thing, because, you know, like you said, this is a really great example.
Yeah, we've got other projects down the hike. I was just thinking we can add that as part of a talking point in the staff report. That's not that's the sustainability and that is becoming more important. So as staff reports start coming towards you, that's something that we'll have to
probably see more.
We'll address a little more with these larger projects. So,
yeah, okay. And then we can kind of sum it up within the, you know, if we need to do that in a resolution, it can be mentioned. I don't know if I want to read every single one of these as a resolution. We'd be here all night. So, but certainly we could, you know, come back to that within a resolution, describing what, you know, a little more generally the success of the project in terms of sustainability. So,
yeah. Well, in the future, we can include it as a whereas.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. It would be a couple of whereases.
Yeah, there, definitely.
Okay. Does anyone have any other comments? So, are we ready to go? Can I entertain a motion?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Sure. All right. I move that we approve the comprehensive design review DR 21-11 of the Vista Woods Senior Apartment Complex, including the tree removal permit and the CEQA notice of exemption.
Now, did we want to add on? And remember, David had a couple of things I thought he wanted to add on to that. Did we want to? Do that? We can't do the traffic study thing because that's going to be that's independent of this project, but it's definitely needs to happen.
And the bit about the state stuff seems to be an in-house thing.
Yeah, so we're going to get those.
Yeah,
so that'll be project, agenda wide now. So okay.
All right. So I'll second the motion.
Can I clarify? Is your motion, I assume your motion is also just to adopt resolution 21-11?
Sorry, to adopt resolution. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll second it again. And I'd also like to suggest just a friendly amendment to maybe have a whereas clause added to the resolution, something like, whereas this project successfully implements numerous elements of the sustainability element of the general plan, nothing unduly complicated, just, have it as part of our resolution. And
that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
I'm okay with that.
Okay with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, David, can we stick those things in?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Okay, let me get my roll call sheet. Commissioner Menes.
Yes.
Commissioner Benzuli.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Yes.
Commissioner Curran.
Yes.
Vice Chair Moriarty.
Yes.
Chair Fenuelos.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, and then now I'll say the thing about appealing. Any person may appeal an action of the Planning Commission or of the planning manager by filing an appeal with the city clerk in writing within 10 days of such action. Following a public hearing, the City Council may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the planning manager. The cost to appeal the deduction is $500 and a minimum $2,500 deposit fee. So there you have it. Well, congratulations, you guys.
Yeah.
When can you get it done?
ASAP.
I'm aging as we speak.
You guys are killing me.
Let's go.
Killing me.
All I got to say is I'm going to miss when we have to go back in the council chambers where a project like this, where I can't spread everything all over the room.
Oh yeah, you're not kidding. I have four screens. So.
And I just want to thank the applicants for putting all this stuff together for us. I know it must have been a huge amount of work just getting all the raw information required for this project and then generating the presentations on top of that. So, thank you for getting all this together.
I appreciate you acknowledging
they're brutal.
Well, also thank the staff and the subcommittee for. There's a lot of work done there, I'm sure, and it makes it a lot easier for the rest of the commissioners who are not on the subcommittee to just breeze through this. We relatively breeze through it. just because of all the work that was done, and I really appreciate it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, works.
And before Jay leaves, just to let you know, we'll be filing the NOE probably either tomorrow or Wednesday to get that clock ticking, and then we'll move forward there. So,
Excellent. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, so let's see. That's the end of our public hearings. Now, we don't have any old business. We don't have any new business. And city planners, commissioners report. That's you, David, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I got this one.
Got anything?
Yeah, I got a number of things. One is project 2 down, 3 more are coming.
Great.
We've got 3 in the queue right now. We're looking at probably the end of the year with projects 3 and 4, which is 2801 Pinole Valley Road and with 2151 Appian, or what we call Appian Village. Okay. So those are coming down the pike. We'll probably see those towards the end of the year, maybe over into January. But if we can get them in December, that'd be great. But we're working on those. Working with the environmental consultant, who's done a great job helping us out getting these things, and our city attorney's environmental crew to, get these things dialed in. And so those will be coming down. I did want to mention, of course, we kind of mentioned a little earlier, I am working on the corridor. On the specific plan and bringing those corridors to you guys. So as part of the educational of the specific plan and all that. And so hopefully I'll have that to you, like I said, in one of your meetings in October, probably the second one. So we'll get that going. The community development director, new community development director will probably be here online, probably here in the next, I would say the next month and a half, 6 weeks.
Really?
So yeah. So whoever that person is, they'll be installed. I'm sure they'll be making their mark here at the commission meetings. Let's see what else.
David, someone is hired. Someone is hired.
I think they're at the next steps. They've selected. They're in the process of selecting the final. They're in the final phases of that. So I'm just thinking that'll be in the last 2 weeks, and then about with the 30-day notice, probably looking at the end of the year. So,
great. Okay.
So we're getting that on board. Let's see what else. Regarding your emails. Yes. Powered through. You can access them. I'm not sure yet, but I've got them. So
great.
I will be sending your emails. Your City of Pinole emails to you through your regular emails that you've provided, and then we'll start sending things. And I'll have to ask IT. I think you can ask them through employee email and do an Outlook, and you can get it through there. It's kind of like employee email. So. But I'll check with IT just to make sure. But I have all your addresses, and I'll be sending those to you shortly, probably tomorrow or probably Wednesday. Awesome. I'll be out tomorrow and Friday this week, so I'll probably get it to you Wednesday or Thursday. But I got them. Okay. And then let's see what else.
The zoning administrator meeting.
Yes, I have that on Wednesday. I have one on Wednesday. We have an item on the agenda, and so I'll be meeting. That's happening Wednesday at, let's see, what time is that at? 29th at 2 p.m.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? That's the first time that I actually saw an agenda that was targeted towards the zoning administrator position. I don't know if I've missed ones in the past.
No.
But that was like, whoa, that's new.
Yeah, so, no, as a zoning administrator, I mean, we have the city's always had this position, but they haven't used it in a long time. I think Winston was the last one who used it, and he probably used it back in like 2014, 15, somewhere in there. Okay. And so we're required to post agendas and noticing and some of the similar requirements that we do for other meetings. And then what happens is they present their project to me. I mean, I don't have a stat since I'm like you. I'm the planning in a sense. I'm like the planning commission. So they will present their project to me, and I have to look at it per the zoning ordinance to make sure that it's all consistent with the zoning and make certain findings that it meets the criteria of the zoning code. So we've got the first meeting on Wednesday. So that you'll be seeing that, and like I said, they're not going to be regular meetings. It's only when we have items. So they'll be popping up. I'll probably try to keep them on Wednesdays, just because that's usually a pretty good day for me to do those. And so depending on when they land. So
could you and Justin make sure that we get noticed on that outside of, because this was through the city council. I can't remember how.
Administration report.
Yeah. So if you could just have it on there just so we're aware, that would be.
Yeah. Well, I have to make you aware of my decisions. So because there's an appeal period of my decision to the planning commission. So after the meeting, depending on what I decide or however, then I have to notify you fairly shortly after that to let you know what my decision is and whether or not they have 10 days to appeal that decision to the commission. So you'll get noticed right after or the next day after I make those rulings.
Okay. That'll be a great thing to put in those brand new emails.
There you go. Well, all your agendas will be going to those emails and all that kind of stuff. The only thing I will say is that all those emails are subject to the Brown Act, so I don't want to see any daisy wheeling. I don't want to see reply all on those emails, even though they're city emails. The Brown Act still applies to the planning commissioners. So,
well, actually, our existing emails could technically be part of the Brown Act, so it's really good to get that separation.
Yeah, they are.
Now they are.
Yeah, they are. They always have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good to kind of do the separation.
Yeah. But you still are under the Brown Act in terms of meeting with other commissioners and all that kind of stuff. So the daisy wheel still applies in the sense that you can't talk to other commissioners regarding projects more than two or that. But at least all of those emails should hopefully be on your City of Pinole emails and not your personal emails. So anyway, so just want to give you a heads up on that. I think that's all I have tonight.
Okay, that sounds good.
When are we going to have a legislative update? Bill 9 and 10.
SB 9, yeah. I mean, I was looking to do that the same night as the specific plan, so you'll have it at either your first or second meeting in October.
Okay.
That sounds good. Communications. Does anyone have anything they'd like to communicate about?
Well, actually, Tim, I would, before we start ending anything, I'd really like to welcome again Raphael to his first meeting and commend him on the work that he's done, the research he's done, and just congratulate him on his first meeting, and looking forward to many more.
Yeah, did pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good thing to say, David.
Any other communications?
And did you have something floating around that you wanted to talk about?
No, that was the SB 9 and 10.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
I'll hit you on the Sprouts development and the signage and all that kind of stuff next time.
Yeah.
Don't
I need a couple weeks for that. So
I'll give you a break. It's 10:30. Give me a break too.
Yeah, don't throw that in one bag. Save it for so we can do other things. Yeah.
I'll pull it out of my pocket next time.
Yeah, if it gets slow, you can bring that up.
Well, what I'll do, and I have a little bit of, the only information I did have was that I pried from Tamara before she left, was that there was the only mitigation, the difference was the additional landscaping on the medians and the other thing, there was one other thing.
We got the mystery trees still, right?
Yeah. So those I think we can still go after. I think we can still get after. I think the mitigation for the trees, but part of that mitigation of the trees was the enhancement and the maintenance of the island. So
okay, it's good to know.
Interesting. Okay.
All
right. Well, we'll get the real skinny on that next time. So appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, our next meeting of the Planning Commission, the regular meeting, is going to be on October 11th.
Is that going to be true? Because it's Columbus Day, Indigenous Persons Day. Is that a holiday?
Oh, it hasn't been since I was like in the first grade.
I don't know. I don't think we get Columbus Day.
You don't? You guys get everything else.
I think you do.
I think we do.
I think you do. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go to the second meeting and we'll cancel that one and go.
Or we'll just check it. I mean, you guys get so many holidays.
I'll check the calendar just to make sure. And but if I can put some items together for that meeting, I'll try and get the San Pablo Avenue corridor on there and at least start the conversation on that. We can always continue it to the next meeting, but we'll get the conversation started.
Okay. Do we have any non-massive housing development projects coming up? I forgot to ask you that.
No, no. We might have some. We don't have any single family homes. I was going to ask Justin about those. I don't think we have any single family homes that we're doing at this point. And most of the other projects are admin design reviews that are less than 500 square feet.
Okay.
So, but we do have some of those, and we're getting a lot more tenant. Just to let you know, we are getting a lot more tenant improvements for some of the commercial areas, so that's a good thing.
Good tax revenue.
So things are moving along in that regard.
Okay.
Our permit yield is very high still. So,
all right, that sounds good.
It looks like I just went ahead and had a look at the memoranda of understanding, because this actually just went to the council just last week, the various memoranda of understanding for PEU and AFSV. And I don't see any holidays listed in October. There's November 11th, there's the fourth Thursday in November, there's fourth Friday in November, but I don't see anything listed in October.
Okay.
They don't get Veterans Day?
No, we get Veterans Day.
Veterans Day is November 11th, looks like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Man, we got to get that holiday in October. Okay, all right. No.
Yeah, you're missing one. Maybe you can put White Flower Day back
That's all we ask.
All right.
So,
So we may or may not have a meeting on October 11th.
Right.
But if we do, please show up because it'll be at 7:00.
Yeah.
And subject to them thinking of something else.
Yeah.
So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Good job.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. Thanks to everybody for, welcoming me here and tolerating by getting used to the ropes of a new commission. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no. We appreciate all your input.